mesmerizing run by the quarterback.
Marvin Harrison Jr. touchdown. Marvelous Marv.
Ball next to the end zone. Drop down for Franklin. A majestic touchdown.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college fantasy football podcast. All right, we are live. Good evening, everybody. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. I hope you guys are having a wonderful evening on this Sunday night. We got a draft getting ready to kickstart here in about the next 10-ish minutes. So we'll get that started here. Y'all, I don't know about y'all tonight, but for me and Matt, it is a rebellion of technology going on over here. We almost didn't have a draft room tonight, y'all, in terms of being able to see it on the stream. And then Matt was going first your computer took a dump on you, and then your webcam decided to just go into the Matrix or something like that. I'm not sure what was going on with you. But Matt, how you doing tonight, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm really intrigued to be drafting against a bunch of CFF people and see if I can hold my own. So I appreciate you having me on. I mean, I love watching these things. So hopefully, I love listening to everything you and our CFF team does. So hoping I picked up a few nice little nuggets here and there that I'm able to hold my own in this draft.
Yeah, hold on. I'm not sure what's going on with our draft. It is telling me that there's no countdown to the draft. So hopefully this is going to start on time, because y'all, man, it just the way things are going tonight, it is just going absolutely fantastic. But Matt, we got a few minutes here before the draft kicks off here. We got a few questions in the chat from Ryan and Ben. And those of you who are listening, y'all are welcome to put in questions in the chat as well. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and share this with some of your college football buddies. Again, we are a fantasy-oriented show, but we do just love talking about college football. So if you got friends who want to come over and ask us questions about what we think about this team or that player, whatever, we'll take all of it over here. We're just here to have a good time and talk some fantasy and stuff like that. So Matt, let's go with a question here. We'll go to the first question in the chat here from Ben. He says, what do we think about the options at Vandy? On the C2C side of things, Matt, do you ever think about Vandy?
I mean, I did when Raymond Davis was there because that's my guy. But no, outside of that, I have not. They've got the running back. Is it Cedric? I always forget.
Cedric Alexander.
Alexander, yeah. He's probably the only one that I'm paying attention to. I mean, obviously, he was a freshman that didn't make it into our freshman guide, but he has gotten a lot of hype. I mean, Raymond Davis had an okay year. There were times that I was starting him in a C2C league. So I would think if I was starting Raymond Davis, there'll be times that I start Cedric Alexander. But I mean, outside of him, there's really not a lot, at least that off the top of my head, I can think of I'd be willing to, pay attention to on the CFF side, draft, put on my teams.
So Will Shepherd's interesting to me because he got 10 plus targets in 7 games last year, so he definitely can get the volume when he need to on certain weeks. He gets AJ Swan back again this year, who is a more consistent passer and probably the best passer I think Vanderbilt's had in quite a long time. I mean, not that they've had great options, so the bar is in hell, but he is still clearing the bar. So I think that'll help Will Shepherd a little bit, and then maybe Jaden McGowan. No, I'm not going to say him as a CFF guy, but if you're holding on to him in Dynasty, or if you're in a C2C, a deep C2C, and you're holding on to him maybe for production in the future, I wouldn't blame you too much there. We'll skip. Sorry, Ben, you got a lot of questions here, man. I'm going to go flip this over to Ryan's question. He says, here's my first question. Nobody has information on the Bama quarterbacks, for example. So in a 30-round draft, why not just draft all 3 of them? I'm going to say this because I would not want to dedicate 1/10 of my roster to a single quarterback spot that I'm not entirely sure is actually going to be that helpful for us this year. Because again, Bama's obviously going to score a lot of points. They're Bama, but even still, I don't know if the Bama quarterback, we saw this with Bryce Young last year. It's when things aren't fully clicking for the offense, like, yes, you get a decent fantasy quarterback option out of them, but you're not going to get a guy that's going to finish in the top 10 of CFF QBs. So I'm not going to draft 3 quarterbacks to fill a spot for a guy who's probably going to finish in the QB 30-40 range. Matt, you have any thoughts there?
No, I was going to say I completely agree with you. I mean, we really don't know who the starter is going to be. We all assume it's going to be Jalen Milroe. I know there's a lot of talk in the community that maybe it's going to be Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame, because he comes over and he knows the system. But I mean, if you look at the timeline, Tommy Rees recruited over him in the portal to bring Sam Hartman in. Like, Tyler Buckner was still on the roster, and Tommy Rees felt like he wasn't good enough to run that offense at Notre Dame, and brings in one Sam Hartman, but then goes and brings him in. I really think it's just a depth move because they need help at quarterback. Because, I don't know that Eli Holstein or Dylan Lonergan are that great at quarterback prospects, and I don't know either one would even be able to ready to step in if something happened. I don't know where you're going to see this massive fantasy output from any of those guys. Maybe Jalen Milroe with the rushing, but I mean, Ty Simpson, we had questions about his passing to begin with coming in. Really good athlete. I really think with the way that they've set up this offense, it's going to be a run-heavy offense. If you're wanting players on this team, I think it's the running backs that you want to go after. If you want to take a shot on the cheapest Alabama quarterback, I wouldn't hate that because you're only spending one roster spot, but I'm with you. Like, to use 3 roster spots on all 3, of which none of them may even finish top 30, like you just mentioned, right? So you just wasted 3 roster spots. It would be hard for me to do so.
All right, the draft has gotten started here. We'll get to some of the questions as we go throughout here. Ben and Ryan, I know you guys are going to ask 50 billion here, but I am on the clock. I'm going to go something a little different tonight. I've been kind of wide receiver heavy in the first round here, but I came across something that kind of not surprised me. This shouldn't surprise me at all about this player, but it made me realize, like, I have not gotten a single share of this man this year. And honestly, if I want probably the safest floor I can get in a CFF league right now, you can go with Austin Reed in the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers over there. Starting off pretty easy there. Again, of the top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy last year, the most consistent, and I measure that in standard deviation here, the most consistent on a week-to-week basis was Austin Reed. And we saw that with Bailey Zappi last year as well. So the entire system that they're going to continue to run over there with the Hilltoppers provides pretty much the safest fantasy option you can put out there right now, even though he doesn't really run the ball a whole lot. So Matt, we got a little bit of time here until we get to your pick, because you're on the turn, the 12-13. Yeah. You were kind of, I bet you were hoping for an earlier pick so you could pick an obvious guy. But and still, like, what are you cool with me taking Austin Reed there at the 2 spot? Because I've typically gone like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malachi Corley in that spot. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Austin Reed in that offense, the Western Kentucky offense is an offense I've heard you guys say you want to attack very badly. And speaking from a C2C perspective, I don't know that I necessarily believe this or see this, but there are people who have talked to Matt Waldman, who we all in the fantasy industry respect, and have said that they think that there's some actual NFL upside there for Austin Reed. So I know this is obviously just CFF potential. Here's what we're talking about, CFF best ball. But I mean, even in C2C league, he's got some value. If he's a dude who can do anything close to what Bailey Zappi has done or what he was even able to do last year, it's a great pick. He was high in my queue, so.
Let's see. I got a fun question here from Felix, who is asking, what round should Quinn Ewers be taken, and should Davis Brin be taken ahead of him? 1, yes, 100% Davis Brin should be taken ahead of Quinn Ewers in CFF drafts. The problem with Quinn Ewers is that when you have, especially in best ball, but regardless in CFF, you want one of 2 things from your quarterback. You either want great rushing production or you want elite passing volume. And Quinn Ewers doesn't really on paper offer either one of those things. So, wait, sorry, I thought everything froze up there. He doesn't really offer either one of those things. So you don't want to take him very highly in your drafts. Now, do I think he is in for a better year this year than he was last year? Yes, absolutely. Last year was almost pretty much worst case scenario for him. Just the chemistry with him and Worthy was off. Bijan Robinson taking a crap load of the touchdown. So you're probably going to see some touchdown regression for Ewers there. I think I have him as my QB 37 right now. So if I were to put that in our ADP right now, I would be drafting him in like the 14th round of a CFF draft. So Matt, that might hurt your little heart to hear that over there, but that's I think that's a I think that is a fair place to go ahead and grab him there because I do think he can offer some level of floor for you if he truly is running the offense totally this year.
I can let you know right now he's not going around 37 or whatever you said, 14.
No, my QB 37, round 14 is what, round 14 is where I draft.
He's going before round 14 tonight. Probably not before Davis Brin.
I'm saying I would draft him in round 14. I have 0 shares of Quinn Ewers this year, by the way. Oh, I think we lost you there for a minute. Oh, you're back. Wait, nope. You said I think you're quiet. Did you mute yourself?
There we go. Did. I did just for a second. Sorry.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay,
it is. I would say you're on the clock, Matt. So where do you go? Like again, you're not like a CFFer. You're a C2C'er. Where are you kind of going with this?
So I am going to approach this the way I would a C2C or even a startup NFL draft, and we're starting 2 quarterbacks in this bad boy, right?
Yes, we are starting 2 quarterbacks.
Then I'm taking 2 quarterbacks. I'm taking them right off the board, and Michael Penix Jr. and Riley Leonard. I want to attack that quarterback position right now, get 2 studs. I'll worry about pivoting. So to be honest, is why I did not put as many quarterbacks in my queue as I have running backs and wide receiver. Those are loaded into my queue. I like a lot of the options there. I feel like I can attack those later in the rounds, get 2 stud QBs to start off, and I can kind of grab a QB 3, maybe a Quinn Ewers a little bit later that I think can help me out when I need them, assuming Michael Penix and Riley Leonard are my starting quarterbacks all season outside of bye weeks.
All right. My cursor just went on the fritz. Again, it's a war with technology tonight, y'all. Anyway, so Riley Leonard really ahead of a guy like Frank Harris. That kind of surprises me. But even still, even though I just took Austin Reed as my first quarterback there, mostly, again, I haven't had a share of him. I want a share of him. That's why I kind of targeted him tonight. I have found the sweet spot for quarterbacks has really been in that range of round 7 through 11 in CFF. There's a lot of guys. I don't blame people for going for one elite option in round 1 because I do think there are 6 elite options for CFF this year, which is obviously your Caleb Williams, your Austin Reeds, your Drake Mays, your Bo Nixes, your Michael Penixes, your Frank Harrises. Then you have kind of a next tier where people kind of reach up for them in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round range. And to me, the guys that come off in like the 7th to 10th round range especially are pretty much just as good as some of those guys that come off around that range. So that's kind of where I have found myself kind of targeting QBs more than anything else. But again, I don't also blame people for trying to hit on 2 elite options early on. Like again, Justin Nottingham just took Bo Nix and Frank Harris off the board. I honestly think that if both of those guys hit, he could have won the league right there.
Yeah, I mean that's my whole goal here. Remember, I think I played in 1 CFF league. I was in a couple best balls last year, or some eliminators that Dwight Peoples runs. I was not very successful in most of them, so I just wanted to try and I'm approaching this the way I know how to draft. And I'm hoping to learn things while I'm here. So I mean, Penix Jr. had a really great season last year. Why I doubt Riley Leonard's NFL upside. He was a very good quarterback, and I feel like if I get the best out of both those, like you said with Justin, with Bo Nix and Frank Harris, I feel like I've got 2 good quarterbacks that I can rely on every single week.
Yep, fair enough. Again, my only worry with Riley Leonard and Duke is I think they caught a lot of people off guard last year, so they're going to be able to game plan for them just a little bit better this year. You're probably not going to see Riley Leonard finish top 10 again. But at the same time, if he does finish top 10 again, well, you just drafted him as a top 10 quarterback, so I'm not going to blame you right there. Mitch Hart is definitely fighting against me on the QB start and everything. And again, I don't normally recommend that. But again, because I do think there are 6 almost, I say almost because I'm a little hesitant on Drake May this year. But like there's 6 almost can't miss prospects this year because we've seen them do it already. So if you grab 2 of those guys, I don't necessarily blame anybody who goes that route. All right, other questions in the chat. I see some people talking about Malik Murphy. So Matt,
yeah,
you're a big Quinn Ewers guy, but you know Malik Murphy is sitting there behind him, and then you got Arch Manning. How do you kind of break down that Texas quarterback room? What do you think kind of happens next there? What is the future for both of those guys?
It's really hard to predict. I know Malik Murphy, by all reports, had a really good spring. And a lot of the stuff was, well, it was much better than last year. And I would say it's probably kind of hard to not be better than last year. He was injured almost all of last year. Really wasn't doing anything. It's hard for me to envision if Arch Manning is who everybody thinks that he is and can be, that he's not going to get that starting job next year. Now, I don't know that Sark would just pander to Arch Manning and put him in, but let's be honest. We all heard the reports last year, right? That Quinn Ewers wasn't that good and that Sark did it because the booster said so. So if you're going to follow that narrative, you should follow the narrative that Arch Manning is going to be the starter next year. Whatever happens with the QBs there, if you want Malik Murphy, if you're talking CFF Dynasty or C2C League, I would 100% take him because he is good enough to be a starter somewhere. Obviously, if it's in the Sark offense, you'll be happy. Really, really rocket arm, probably one of the strongest arms in college football, and a very intriguing player with his tools and upside. But if it's not at Texas, he's probably going to get a job somewhere to be the starter, and then Arch will be the guy. I think it's too early to say. If you were asking me right now, Quinn Ewers goes down in week 3 to an injury like he did last year, Malik Murphy's going in and he's playing. I do not think it'll be Arch. But him being there for a whole year and then going into another camp battle, I do think that Arch has a chance to supersede or jump over Malik Murphy at some point next year and take that job.
All right, it just came back to me on my pick here. I normally start wide receiver pretty early on here. And I got really lucky here because a lot of people kind of reached up for some quarterbacks here in the second round. A lot of guys I probably would have waited on. So I had 2 really good wide receivers fall to me here. Jalen McMillan out of Washington, who quite frankly, I think it comes at an excellent discount compared to Odunze, although in this draft there's only a couple of picks. But then I grabbed Jacob Cowing, a guy who was a top 20 wide receiver in CFF last year. Dorian Singer is out of the window, so it's just him and Ted McMillan over there at Arizona. He should be an absolute monster this year. I am kicking myself a little bit because I did not go and look at my tight end queue, and I should have probably grabbed Oronde Gadsden and just given myself an elite tight end here pretty early on. But that's what I get for catching myself napping over here. Chris B asks, what makes you so hesitant about Drake May this year? Nothing to do with his talent, Chris. Nothing whatsoever to do with Drake May's talent. I still think he'll be a first-round quarterback next year. I was very high on him last year. He absolutely lit it up. The change at offensive coordinator with Chip Lindsey coming in there does give me quite a bit of pause because pretty much everywhere that Chip Lindsey has gone, we have seen a decrease in the production for that offense, and we see a lot of spreading the ball around. Now, that shouldn't hurt Drake May that much, but if that offense just overall is less efficient, you may not see Drake May kind of hit those elite fantasy numbers like he did last year versus a guy like Bo Nix got an awesome replacement offensive coordinator. Michael Penix has the same crew over there. Frank Harris still has Jeff Taylor over there. Caleb Williams is going to be Caleb Williams. All those guys, and Austin Reed is still going to run the same system. All those guys pretty much have the same thing kind of coming back there. Versus Drake May, I really don't know what to expect from that Tar Heels offense. They could be totally fine. But in terms of guys I'm going to take in the first round, probably going to let somebody else take the shot on Drake May. Matt, it is coming up to you here, the last couple of picks here. What are you kind of hoping falls to you here, man?
So with taking 2 quarterbacks, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like now I can pivot away from that position for a while. I mean, I really don't feel like I need to attack the quarterback until probably rounds 13, 14 as we get later into the draft. So right now, really kind of depends on who goes in these next 2 picks, but I'd like to come away with a running back and a wide receiver, attack one from each of those positions. There is a specific running back I'm looking at here. If they come off the board in the next 2 picks, I might pivot and just go 2 wide receivers. It's probably, false hope on my part. I kind of hope Jalen McMillan would make it back to me. Obviously, I would have loved to pair that up. Same like you do in the NFL side. You love to pair up, at least for me, a wide receiver with their quarterback. But you obviously took him, so I'm not going to get that. So I'm going to take LaDamian Webb, who was the running back I was hoping would make it back to me. Had a really good year last year. I picked him up because of you guys and a lot of my C2C leagues. Carried me to some playoffs. Unfortunately, I believe he got injured toward the end of the year, or he wasn't as successful. And then I'm going to go on this guy because I hear Chris Mockley talking him up, and I'm pretty sure you guys have as well. And that's Mr. Sam Wiggles out of Ohio. I don't even know how to say his last name.
Wigless,
but he's very highly rated by a lot of you guys. I've heard you guys talk about him, so I'm going to take him as my wide receiver 1 here and hope that some of my other targets that I really like fall to me here. It's a long way to go, unfortunately. It's the worst part about picking on the end.
When you're picking on the end, you just have to take what falls to you. There is no, this guy's going to make it back to me. You just got to see where the draft is when it makes it back to you at the 5-6 turn here. LaDamian Webb is a good pick. Don't get me wrong. Based on ADP and everything like that, I am starting to become a little hesitant on him because I realized that 40% of his production last year came in 2 games. Now, granted, it was an awesome 2 games, and it was it was towards the later half of the season, but then he kind of got injured again. So maybe he would have kept it going from there. I do know that staff doesn't want to go back to him being that workhorse running back like they had last year. They kind of did it more out of necessity because nobody else was really doing anything over there. They brought in Kendrell Bullock from Ole Miss, and they think that he'll be good enough. Like, obviously, Webb's still the best running back on that roster by far, but he'll be enough to kind of take some of that workload off of Webb so they can maybe avoid the injury situation like they had with Webb last year. So it'll be great in the fact that you'll probably get him for all 12 games now, but I just don't know if that is going, like, all 12 games are going to be as explosive as they were last year. But regardless, probably still a pretty good pick there. All right, it continues down here. Let me check what's going on here in the chat. So Ryan asked, there are freshmen that everyone thinks are going to be impact players right away. For the ones who may not be, when should they get picked to take a chance on in this kind of draft? That really depends on the player. So I've seen a lot of people take the shot on Cedric Baxter. Don't blame that whatsoever. I've seen people take the shots on Dante Moore as well, Zachariah Branch. But that's really more than anything else is that there's shots. There's no, like, especially at this point in the offseason, there's no guarantee any of these guys are going to be starters at least day one. If you're drafting a freshman, you're really kind of hoping that they kind of explode the second half of the season. But I don't blame anybody for taking shots. Now, anybody who like reaches up in like the top 10 rounds to take a freshman, I think you're kind of pushing it a little bit. What do you kind of think there, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think you named a couple of the main guys. Nico would be another guy that I'd probably be interested in taking a shot on one of my last picks, just because I do expect Milton to be the starter most of the season. But if something weird happens injury-wise, or if Tennessee loses a couple games and just decide to throw Nico out there, we know how great that system is. One wide receiver I've been talking a lot about, and I actually think I'd be willing to take him much earlier, is Jaden Greathouse. I mean, we know he's got the upgrade at quarterback and Sam Hartman there at Notre Dame, and I think he has a realistic shot to be the best wide receiver in that room. They're going to put him in the slot, so he's that big slot wide receiver. They lost Michael Mayer. Lorenzo Styles moved on to Ohio State. Like, that room is wide open. I know Tobias Merriweather had some moments, and a lot of people are hoping he steps up, but I just think Greathouse is the much better player. He's probably the one freshman that I'm pretty overloaded on him in a lot of the leagues that I have him in. I've taken him in a lot of places because he just continues to fall, and I think he's got a real shot to do something this year. Outside of them, though, I mean, I don't know that you're really wanting to go after any of the Ohio State guys, because I just don't see it. They've really kind of leaned in on playing their top guys like 90 to 95% of the time. I don't know that any of those freshmen get out there. Running backs, there's not, like, maybe Reuben Owens at Texas A&M if he starts to get some run, but that's a pretty loaded backfield as well. So it's really hard to kind of pick which freshman I think could bounce back. And the quarterbacks you already mentioned, I really think it's probably Dante Moore, who we think might have a shot at some point to play for UCLA, and then Nico at Tennessee.
Yeah, and I would only really take Nico in this draft if I am Tom there and I've drafted Joe Milton. That seems like a very good handcuff right there, because either one of those guys start, you should be seeing a pretty good amount of production there. Armando Rivera, welcome, sir. I have not recognized you in the chat before, but thank you for putting in a question. A pretty interesting one here. Jeff Sims, is he a sleeper this year? Well, for those of you who don't know, Jeff Sims, former quarterback out of Georgia Tech, transferred out this past year after it's kind of an up and down year. Coaches really didn't seem to want to commit to him too much. He is now over at Nebraska with Matt Rule over there. They're hoping to kind of rebuild that program up from the mess that Scott Frost left it in there. And quite frankly, it seems like he chased off Casey Thompson. Casey Thompson now at Florida Atlantic with Tom Herman. That's a pretty good sign, in my opinion, that the coaching staff over with the Cornhuskers seems pretty bought into what they're doing with Jeff Sims over there. And he is a dual threat guy. Anytime you can get a dual threat guy going, that is great. He basically is for free in most of your drafts right now. I don't really see him going higher than like I think the highest maybe I've seen him being taken is like in the round 20 to 25 range. So like, he is a very, very good guy to just kind of take a shot on later on. Matt, do you have any thoughts on Jeff Sims real quick?
I 100% agree with that. I talked a little bit about him on Debbie Debate recently. You go back and look. I mean, I know a lot of people have some sour taste in their mouth, I think is the fair way to put it, based on what Matt Rule did in the NFL. But if you look at what he did in college, he was extremely successful, not just with Temple, but with Baylor. I believe it was Charlie Brewer for 1 year. He got up to QB 13 before he ended up transferring out. And then he was actually splitting time at one point with Jerry Bohannon, who ended up as QB 26. He passed the ball in 2018 50% of the time in neutral game script situations. And we saw both those guys get a little bit of rushing yards. I mean, I agree with you. Jeff Sims is a really great dual threat. I think this offense has got a chance to be good for fantasy. I don't know it's going to be good for college football, but Nebraska likely going to be behind in a lot of games. I don't think they're going to have any reservations about running. Jeff Sims is probably, I think, his last year of eligibility. It's kind of hard to guess with all the COVID and everything. So, I mean, Jeff Sims, I think, for, as you mentioned, where you're getting him. I mean, I think in even our C2C ADP, he was like almost a 200th pick in our ADP. So he's a free pick. If you get that guy, and if he at all bounces back to what Matt Rule has shown us his quarterbacks can do, even if you go on the low end, like a Jerry Bohannon at QB 26, that's a high-end QB3 you're getting for literally the last pick in your draft. I'm all in. Oh, shoot, I'm up. Okay.
Hey, go ahead and make your pick right now. I'll go ahead and talk about my picks over here. I told a lot of people in this round, like 3 to like 6, 7 range, man, I am all about loading up on running backs. And I just grabbed 2 of my favorite running backs in this range. Rodney Hammond, who's absolutely going to take over right where Izzy Abandakanda took left off last year. In terms of the volume, I don't think he'll be as explosive as Izzy was last year, but we saw the very first game against West Virginia. He was pretty much the workhorse back for the Panthers. Izzy took over from there after Rodney got injured, and then in the bowl game, he went right back to what he was doing and did well against UCLA. So I love that pick. And then Jace McClellan, we were talking about the Alabama quarterback situation before. I don't trust that quarterback situation right now. So they're going to have to run the hell out of the ball, and Jace McClellan's going to be right there at the forefront of that. So I'm absolutely going to load up on that right there. So love that duo of running backs I was able to get. I'm having some pretty good luck in this draft in terms of the guys that are falling back to me. Matt, you went a little homer at round 5 there, but that's pretty much where he's been going. So Travion, is he back, man? You're very plugged in with Ohio State over there. Can we trust him to break away from, quite frankly, the just stable of great running backs that Ohio State's kind of built up for themselves over there?
I really think so. I mean, I know there's the narrative that he's going to be splitting time with Mayan, and he definitely will. Mayan has earned that right. You know, he will get some carries. But if you even go back to his freshman season with Ohio State, Mayan Williams was the starter, and then about a game and a half in, Travion Henderson took over and then was the guy. And then Mayan did suffer some injuries later on that really kind of struggled to keep him on the field. And then last year, the same thing. I mean, it was Travion Henderson. You go to that game 1, he was the one out there. You go to that game against Notre Dame, he was the one getting the first carries. And I think they will do the same thing. The biggest drop off from last year to his freshman year, we did not see any of the receiving work. And Evan Pryor, not going to be there. Dallin Hayden, while extremely impressive, I think is going to be still relegated to the third guy in that rotation. Mayan Williams is definitely going to get run. He's a tough, bruising back that they love to use in certain situations, but Travion Henderson was beat up from game 2 last year with that broken bone in his foot. I think it really affected his season. I think he's in for a massive bounce back, but he's got to stay healthy. He really does. I mean, I think it's fair to say he has a little bit of an injury history now, so it's a little bit of a risky pick. But, you know, you play fantasy football, you want to be able to cheer for and root for players that you like, and Henderson is a player that I really like.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely nobody's going to fault you for that right there. My only thing is, Ryan Day kind of showed last year that when guys just get roughly beat up, like just slightly beat up, he is not afraid to hold them out for multiple games. Because again, his eyes are on the playoff. His eyes are on the national championship. He wants to hold those guys out, make sure they're fully healthy, because he knows that he can beat the Michigan States of the world, the Rutgers, the Marylands of the world without Travion Henderson back there, because he has Dallin Hayden, because he has Evan Pryor, which most people don't even really know about Evan Pryor back there. So, all right, it's my pick over here. I'm going to continue my run on running backs here because I don't want to get caught with myself with my pants down later. I'm going to go ahead and take one LaQuint Allen, running back out of Syracuse. I got 2 pretty safe options there, so why not take a shot on a guy who, you know, things may not work out for there because, again, Sean Tucker is a pretty talented running back, so maybe LaQuint Allen's not as good there. But regardless, I think as my third running back here, I will take the shot on that system right there. And then, especially with his work as a receiving back, caught 11 balls in the bowl game. Just absolutely insane there. Let's see what we got going on here. Chris Moxley's asking, is Travion soft? Matt, you see that in the chat?
No, I did not see that in the chat, but that doesn't surprise me that he's coming for Henderson. No, I don't think so. You go back and look at his freshman season. He was not afraid to run people over. Does he have injury histories? Yeah, injury history. Yes, he does. And we'll see. It's never been the same injury, so I'll take that as a little bit of upside. But I mean, a hamstring here, a bone in your foot there, like it's not great. We'll see what he does this year. I really do think he's got a chance to bounce back.
All right, Armando Rivera asks again, curious on our thoughts on A.D. Mitchell and Jordan Whittington. I'm completely out on Jordan Whittington. I like A.D. Mitchell as a late shot in drafts. We're talking a lot of Texas tonight, I just realized. I like A.D. Mitchell as a shot later on in drafts. He'll be opposite of Xavier Worthy over there. I think that was something that Texas was desperately missing last year, was somebody really to help take the pressure off of Xavier Worthy. Again, Worthy is a guy that can carry the offense on his back if he needs to sometimes, but it'll definitely help having a consistent guy on the opposite side of him. And quite frankly, in a best ball scenario, I think there will be games where A.D. Mitchell probably outproduces Xavier Worthy in certain games. So I think taking some guys later, or taking him as a shot later on, absolutely. All right, what else we got going on here? Also, Armando, you're asking, can Jeff Sims be a top 10 QB? Probably not. I'm going to say probably not, because Matt Rule, while he does kind of let his dual threat QBs run, he is still relatively a conservative overall approach on offense. So I wouldn't project him to be a top 10 QB there. By the way, I just continued my running back run there, just loading up on guys here in this range, and I just grabbed Jermaine Brown Jr. out of there at UAB. We're not entirely, or people say they don't really know what kind of offense they're going to run over there at UAB this year. They're going to continue running the ball like they have. Again, Dilfer, who came in as head coach, has been very clear. He knows what kind of players were recruited to that program. Things might change down the line for them, but as of now, he knows the strength of that team is in the offensive line and in the running game. He has two running backs that he really does like a lot in Jermaine Brown Jr. and also, this is a name to kind of file away for later, Demetrius Battle. Big dude from the FCS level. But again, he's been very clear. Jermaine Brown Jr. is a guy that they are going to rely on this year. So I'll take him as my fourth running back off the board here.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on A.D. Mitchell really quick. I agree with you. I think he could have a really good best ball season. I mean, they used Xavier Worthy as their deep target last year, and we saw he kind of struggled with the drops, and they couldn't really get that consistency going between him and Quinn Ewers. You look at this Sark offense, we know that they love the big play. If you look at what he did last year in short and behind the line throws, Quinn Ewers threw 156 of those attempts, either between 0 to 9 yards or behind the line of scrimmage, and then 126 for 10 yards or more, which is likely where they'll be using A.D. Mitchell. So the fact there's only 30 attempts in between those two, I think means A.D. Mitchell is going to be the guy they use to challenge defenses deep. I think he could have a really good season. I mean, it's going to be him, Worthy, and J.T. Sanders.
I'm sorry, I got confused. JT Jatavian Sanders. I've never heard anybody call him JT Sanders before. So my brain. First of all, this is my second show of the day, so like my brain's already mush at this point. But my brain did not compute that there for a second. So Matt, it's coming up to you here now. Oh, dang, I was kind of hoping Finn would fall a little bit further. All right, Matt, what are you looking at here in the 7 and 8 round range here?
Well, I'm going to keep going wide receivers and running backs. I think, let me check what I've got at tight end. And now all the guys that I really wanted are gone at the moment. So I'm going to keep going with that South Alabama offense. I don't know how to say this dude's name, but I'm going to take, is it Devin Voisin? And I'm going to take another running back here as well. I'm going to take Aiden Robbins. I mean, him, Carson Steele are kind of sitting up here at the top of my queue. I don't love Carson Steele in that loaded backfield. I think Aiden Robbins is going to chance to be the guy at BYU, and we've seen that they will ride those running backs, especially with, I think, some serious questions at the quarterback position for BYU. Interesting schedule now, though, them going into the Big 12, but I think he's got a chance to have a pretty decent season.
All righty. We're about, I was going to say, we're not even halfway. We're not even a third of the way through this yet. But regardless, right now I want to take a minute to, first of all, remind you guys that if you have not already hit that like button, again, it helps us in the algorithm. You guys continuing to put questions in the chat and keeping the chat kind of moving along really helps us to get, or it helps us in the algorithm for YouTube, kind of gets us in front of other people's eyes who might be interested in what we are doing over here. So continue to do that. Again, share this with your buddies who love college football, who just want a good area to come out and hang out on a Sunday night to discuss all of these teams. And then in addition, I'm just going to go ahead and do a promo for the CFF guide. We got the CFF guide coming out this Saturday. Again, we are in a CFF draft right now. A lot of these guys in here have done a ton of drafts already this year. But if you are somebody who, hasn't really had time to go and look around, figure out who all's coming back, what do all these teams look like what are all these transfers, what's all the deal with all these transfers and everything, the CFF guide is going to be your best friend. It has breakdowns on all 133 teams in the FC, or the F, not the FCS. Good Lord, I'm not that crazy. In the FBS league. Jared, try again. Anyway, 133 teams out there. And then we also have breakdowns for, I believe it is 48 quarterbacks, 60 running backs, 72 wide receivers, and 36 tight ends. And we got rankings that'll go even deeper than that. We got some ADP analysis. We have some awesome metrics that we're going to be putting in there to help you guys kind of learn how to break down some of these teams, make it easier for you going in year in, year out. It is going to be absolutely phenomenal for you guys. So make sure you go and pre-order that on campusofcanton.com. I believe the link is down in the description. So while you're here, just go check that out and go ahead and get that pre-order going right there. Mox is currently working on the CFF guide as we are listening. So thank you, Mox. All right. Let's see what we got going on here in the draft. Man, it is just not in the cards for me to get Ashton GNT at this point. I've been targeting him in every single draft that I've been doing in the past 2 weeks, and just none of them, I can get him going in. Alrighty, let's see what we got going on here. I'm going to go ahead and take my third wide receiver here. This is a guy that I've drafted a whole bunch of, and I still feel very good about it here. Let's just go ahead and get Justin Lockhart, wide receiver out of San Jose State. Going to take over for Elijah Cooks there. Again, hopefully he can still kind of get that touchdown production that Cooks was getting last year. But regardless, he'll still be the number one wide receiver for that offense. So I'm feeling pretty good about that over there. And then let's see what we can get back on the way here. Ben's currently on the clock. Ben is saying he's taking 2 massive volume picks. Oh, Ricky White and Will Shepard. Well, those are 2 guys that I kind of like a little bit later, but their ADP is rising. Thanks, Justin Leo from Volume Pigs, for bringing attention to these guys. Usually in this range, try to load up on quarterback a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and get my second quarterback here. I'm going to get Shavon Cordero, the quarterback out of San Jose State. Get that nice little stack there with Justin Lockhart. Feeling pretty good about that. Let's see what we got in the chat in terms of questions here. Matt, any thoughts on Raymond Davis, your guy? Not seeing a whole lot of love for him despite Grace usage at Vandy and him going over to Kentucky, where Chris Rodriguez was kind of rocking it over there for a little while. So, yeah. Matt, do you like the move for Raymond Davis? I know you're a big fan of him from kind of a Devy perspective.
Yeah, I think he's a really good player. He's really kind of gotten screwed by injuries, I think it's definitely a thing that matters, you being available and being on the field, and he struggled through some injuries early in his career, but I do think he's a very talented running back. We saw that at times Vanderbilt. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we talked about Cedric Alexander. There's a couple C2C leagues. I plugged him into one of my flex spots, and he got me 20 plus points in a couple of weeks. He was not bad, and that's at Vanderbilt, guys, which played some very good SEC competition. I don't think it's unfair to say that they're probably the worst team in the SEC, and yet he still had some pretty good games. Now they're going to a Kentucky team that is rebuilding that offensive line. They brought back their old offensive coordinator. Do I think that he's going to play well enough to get, second round draft or second day do draft capital? Probably not. He's got the injury history. He's going to be old, but I do think he gets drafted next year, probably in the 4th or 5th round. I think he can have a really good season for Kentucky. He's not going to have that Rodriguez type season because he's not that bowling ball that can just run up the middle for 3 yards in a cloud of dust and score you a bunch of touchdowns. But I do think because of his receiving upside and just how good of a rusher he is, he will bring you some CFF upside this year.
Yeah, no, I think he's absolutely a very safe pick there, and I think he'll probably do better than Rodriguez a little bit in some ways last year, because I think that passing game is going to be better. They bring back Liam Cohen from the Rams. I think Devin Leary. Well, again, I'm already just not a big Will Levis fan regardless. I think Devin Leary is probably going to be able to utilize that system very well. They obviously have three pretty good options at receiver in Barry and Brown, Dane Key, and Tavion Robinson. That'll probably kind of open up some lanes for Raymond Davis to take advantage of that there. So let's see. It's coming back here on the second half. Anybody else kind of asking questions in the chat? Let me go back a little bit, see if there's anything that I missed. I could probably go back to the very beginning with some of Ryan and Ben's questions just to kind of fill the time here. Texas Tech. Matt, any receivers that you are actively targeting there, or are you kind of out on it and just kind of letting somebody else take the shots there?
I mean, it's you. So you guys have to tell me. You guys know this a lot better. I mean, obviously, we want players in the Zach Kittley system. I know it doesn't seem like any of us are super thrilled that Tyler Shuck is going to be the starter again this year, but it feels like you want that wide receiver. I think the problem is none of us seem to know who that guy is going to be. Miles Price is intriguing to me because of how late it seems like he's going. And I know maybe some of that is we just crowned him so much last year. It's like, hey, this is it. He's going to be the guy. And everybody took him so high, myself included. I have him in a couple of spots, and he did definitely disappoint. But that's the second year in that offense. Like, I think he's a guy who could end up having a good year. And he's, I think, the cheapest out of all those options. So he's a guy that I have been actively going after. So with me up here, I'm going to take Mayan Williams to just kind of lock up that Ohio State backfield. Might be a little bit early for me to take him here, but now I know, hey, especially with it best ball, I don't have to choose which one I'm starting every single week, and whoever has the better day is going to be starting. So I'm going to go there. And a wide receiver, I'm going to take Antonio Williams. Had a really good year for Clemson last year as a true freshman. You know, a lot of people are buying into that Garrett Riley offense coming over. I still have my questions about Cade Klubnik and how well that offense is going to be able to adjust to the new system. Still, in my opinion, a at best okay offensive line, but I think he's going to be the one in that offense. And if he's able to put it all together and just take even a small step forward, I think it's a pretty good wide receiver. I think he's my wide receiver 4. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, I'd be very, very happy with that as a wide receiver 4. Again, Garrett Riley, it's been kind of a mixed bag over the years in terms of how he utilizes his wide receivers. I know for a fact a lot of people were very, very frustrated with his usage of Quentin Johnson early on in the season last year, and they finally kind of got him going in the second half of the season. He does eventually kind of find that just the guy who is the best out of the room and kind of key in on him. And I do think Antonio Williams, so long as Adam Randall is still kind of rehabbing, they say he's fully healthy, but I don't fully trust that. I think Antonio Williams will be the best guy that they'll have moving forward. So I like the pick right there. All right, dang, LaJohntay Wester. I was kind of hoping he would fall to me here in the 10th round as well. Just not a lot of, now I'm not getting as lucky with some of the people falling back to me here, but that's okay. I had a lot of good luck at the beginning, and then, you know, the luck has to balance out here at some point. So we'll see what kind of falls to me here. Zachary Franklin, thank God he's continuing to fall down a little bit more. I like him a lot better here in like the 10th round. That makes a lot more sense to me because some people are still taking him in like the 6th round. Guys, I don't know how much. I really don't know how much value the wide receiver 1 at Ole Miss is going to bring this year, especially with Charlie Weiss's record with wide receiver 1 just hasn't been pretty over the years. So if you think he's that much talented to everybody else in that room, go for it in the 10th round. That's fine. And Eagle, you're driving me nuts. You took one of my guys I love here in the 10th round in Mitch Griffiths. So good pick on you there. Barnabas just took, who did you take for Chris? Oh, you took JJ McCarthy in the 10th round. I'm going to have to ask Chris K if he would have taken JJ McCarthy in the 10th round. That Logan Diggs in the 10th round. Tom, are you in the chat? 'Cause I would love to hear a little I would love to hear your thought process on Logan Diggs, cuz to me that LSU backfield just feels like a mess right now. So, all right, it's Carps on the clock. It's about to be my pick. I have one guy absolutely ready to roll here at quarterback. Yep, here we go. Give me Brennan Armstrong over there at NC State with Robert Anae, reunited with Robert Anae. I will absolutely take that as my third quarterback here. Quite frankly, I have Armstrong rated pretty highly in my rankings. I'll probably knock him down a little bit because I've been a bit more hesitant about it lately. But, as my third quarterback, heck yeah, I'll take it. Dang it, Ben, I was really hoping Caleb Johnson would come back to me there on the turn. That sucks. But you know what? It's the 11th round. I haven't taken a tight end yet. And quite frankly, this is a guy that I have a lot of shares of, and it's probably going to come back to bite me at some point. But give me Luke Lachey, tight end out of Iowa. It's just the Iowa tight end production over there. Production factory. I will complete a full sentence at one point. I promise y'all. Matt.
Yeah.
What are you kind of seeing here in the draft and everything? Anything kind of sticking out to you among some of these picks?
No, I mean it's intriguing how many quarterbacks are going. I was actually going to ask you a question about that since your pick has come off the board. With this being best ball, I mean I attacked 2 quarterbacks early on, but have not taken another one. It looks like everybody else on the board has at least 3, if not 4, already on their roster. What is your ideal roster construction when it comes to best ball quarterbacks? Like, how many do you want? This is 30 rounds. How many would you prefer to have on your team going into the season?
5 if I am very, very solid on all of them. 6 if I'm a little bit more hesitant. There's some guys that are kind of late sometimes that I'm willing to take a shot on. One guy, I talk about this a little bit on tomorrow's CTN episode, but like DeQuan Finn, I love him to death. He is awesome, really a value in a lot of leagues right now because he averaged 29.2 fantasy points whenever he played a full game and didn't get hurt. But here's the thing, the guy behind him, Tucker Gleason, pretty much just as productive when he comes into play. So whenever I get DeQuan Finn, I'm starting to just pick up Tucker Gleason at the end of drafts because if DeQuan Finn is as injury prone as he seemed to be last year, I'll take Tucker Gleason just kind of sliding in there whenever Finn isn't there. And I just lock down that Toledo offense pretty much the entire year. Let's see. We got a couple comments in the chat here. Dr. Evil, thank you for the compliment on the Armstrong pick. Tommy Harvey is justifying the Diggs pick. He truly believes that Logan Diggs is the best back there. I don't entirely... Moxley, that hurts, man. I don't entirely disagree that Logan Diggs is probably the best back there because, again, it's a mess over there, but I just don't see how he separates from that room to really earn those extra carries that'll make him CFF relevant. And then Matt, it's coming up to you here again. We're kind of reaching the 1/3 mark. Are you happy with your team so far here, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody else is not going to be based on which I appreciate you being very nice about saying like, yeah, it was a good pick, but I probably wouldn't have taken him here. But I think it's fairly well balanced outside of a quarterback, which I plan on taking here to get a third quarterback just in case. But I've got, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers. I've got some guys I think have interesting upside in, Alex Adams with that Akron offense. I don't think they have a very tough schedule this year. He scored a ton of points toward the end of the season. Sam, is it Wiggless? I forgot. I already forgot to say that.
You got it. Okay. You got it.
Sam Wiggless, again, who you guys have just been pumping up. Same thing. He definitely struggled a little bit toward the back end of the season. Look, I think he had like 1 20-point game, but then a couple games where he was not putting up a lot of points. But I think I've got some fairly interesting wide receivers and running backs, and that puts me at, I thought about taking EJ Smith too. So I'm going to take a quarterback here. One that I think might surprise some people, but I've said that I think they could have the best offense in the Big Ten if the team allows them to open up. That's Drew Allar. But that guy that I'll probably be starting most weeks as long as Michael Penix and Riley Leonard stay healthy and do what I think they can do. But he's a player that I really like and I think could have a interesting season. And I'm probably going to go way off the ball here. And I'm very curious to see what you guys think about this guy. Brady Hunt, the tight end at Ball State. I want to get a tight end that I think is going to be good. And while he's listed as a tight end here, in all of my C2C leagues, he has QB and tight end eligibility. Jared, is he playing quarterback at Ball State? Like,
No.
Is that why he has that? No? Okay.
No, that's just a weird fan track deal and everything. But
I was hoping I got like a cheat code. So,
well, no. So Well, I guess, yeah, if he is playing quarterback at Ball State, that'd be one thing. But no, he is a quarterback eligible person playing tight end, so there's no cheat code there. Braden, great pick there in the 12th round. Good job there. Mitch. But a lot of people like have been drafting Brady Hunt and Tanner Koziel right there around the same range. Brady Hunt's the much better pick, I would say, out of those two because he just has the volume. And Koziel was very touchdown dependent last year. And again, I think they'll be running both of those guys out there this year. Don't get me wrong, because they don't really have any other great options there. But I think Brady Hunt is the one that they're going to rely on a little bit more. So good pick there. Drew Aller is in the same category as Quinn Ewers, in my opinion. The system doesn't offer elite passing volume. I haven't really seen great rushing production, or at least maybe you can correct me on that, Matt. But like everything I've heard about Drew Aller is that he is not a rushing QB. So for him to be your third quarterback here, I think that's a little bit of higher, definitely higher than I would have taken. I was surprised he didn't go Quinn Ewers. He just came off at 12-4 there. I was about to kind of rib you there. I'm just like, you could have taken Quinn Ewers, and I would have kind of gotten it a little bit.
My hope was you kept saying he wasn't going to go to round 14, so that was going to be my pick in round 13, if I'm being honest with you. I was hoping he was going to make it back around to me, but that's all right. I think it's a good pick. I really do think, again, I don't know from the CFF side if he's going to have this massive season, but I do think he does have a pretty bounce back year. And there's a lot of people in the college world as well. I talked to a lot of quarterback coaches recently, and as I was writing that article on Quinn Ewers and just kind of how he's gotten to where he's gotten, and they all think that he's really cleaned up a lot based on the spring game and could have a real bounce back season.
Yeah, that could definitely be a ton of fun. It's kind of back to me here. I was hoping Terrell Vaughn would be here for me at the 12th, but I think who took him? Justin, great pick there, man, because that was like the screaming value on the board for me. So good job taking care of that. Wide receivers, not drying up per se here, but like I'm definitely kind of hitting that tier break where every guy I feel like I'm taking now is definitely a shot compared to some of the guys afterwards. So we'll definitely see. But right now, I think I'm going to take the value at QB that I see. I'm going to take last year's QB 19, Mr. Darren Granger out of Georgia State. I was thinking about passing him up there, maybe just letting somebody else. But again, no real value at any other positions. I will take a guy that could probably finish at QB 19 or even higher this year because that defense at Georgia State is going to be absolutely horrendous this year. So let's see. Anything else coming here in the chat? Mox once again throwing darts at Matt for taking a former Ohio State player and Sam Wiglis. And
was he? I had no idea. Thank you, Moxley, for letting me know that.
Wait, did you really not know that?
Oh yeah. No, he was the walk on. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, gotcha. Alrighty. You know what? Again, we talked about earlier, kind of taking shots on some guys in that Texas Tech system, and I think that's probably where I'm going to go here. But I think I am going to take my shot. Or do I want to go elsewhere? I don't really like anywhere else. Let's see. You know what? I'll take a shot on Jared Bradley. Let's just go with that. Keep the draft moving along here. It's not that sexy slot position, but again, there's a lot more uncertainty with that slot position. I know for a fact Jared Bradley has one of those outside positions locked down, and we saw that with Mitchell Tinsley. That can be an incredible spot for CFF if they're able to get it going. And quite frankly, Bradley had some pretty good games last year. So hopefully they kind of lock down him as one of those outside guys. Tyler Shuck stays healthy, so he has consistent QB play. I am going to take the value there. And then I have one person that I'm hoping will make it back to me. But that's what you get for being on the turn. There is no people getting back to you. So we will find out what happens there. What's going on in the chat?
Who's it that you want to fall back to? Just between you and me. You don't have to tell the rest of the group.
I don't have to tell everybody else and everything.
No, just you and me. Keep it between us.
I will say it's a tight end. It is a tight end.
Gotcha.
Hopefully, hoping to get some value here, or not really value, but again, like it'll help a little bit. So we shall see. Again, I'm going to look through this wide receiver room. Yeah, there's some fun guys to take shots on at wide receiver still. Running back, as I kind of expected, relatively dried up here, but actually, no, there's a couple guys here that if they make it back to me, I'll probably go after them. Let's see, anything else going on? RJ asks, will Seydou Traoré play in 2023? The unfortunate answer is likely not, because he got duped by Deion Sanders and them over at Colorado. They made it seem like that he was going to be a big piece. After the spring, that was clear that he was not going to be, so he transferred back out. But because that is his second transfer in the offseason, it is likely going to mean that he's going to have to either get a waiver, which they're kind of cracking down on a little bit, and he's not really a big name, so unfortunate for him. So I don't think he ends up playing this year. There's a couple of teams out there that seem interesting for him to land. I would love for him to go back to Arkansas State, but Miami apparently has some interest in him, which they apparently love undersized tight ends over there, because you have what's his name, Jaleel Skinner, still over there at Miami and everything, and wasn't Arroyo kind of undersized as well?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So like that would be quote unquote a fit, but that would also kind of hurt his fantasy upside, because Miami hasn't really done anything with Arroyo and Skinner for a while. Matt, it's coming back to you over here. CJ Baxter coming off here in the 13th round.
Oh, nice.
Jonathan Brooks has not come off, I've seen, and then Jadon Blue never really comes off in these drafts, which honestly he might be the value out of the bunch there. Again, more Agreed. Texas talk. Matt, with the Texas running back situation, how do you see that playing out this year?
Man, I'm going to be honest. I think it's going to end up being Baxter and Blue. They're just by far the better players. I know Jonathan Brooks was a starter in the bowl game last year when Bijan didn't play, but he went into the offseason with that injury. He never really got on the field in spring. And in fact, a lot of the reports were that Jadon Blue and Cedric Baxter both looked amazing. He ended up making it back and was doing drills, but never actually made it back in practice. And I know some people who are close to the Texas program who have said that the coaches cannot stop talking about Cedric Baxter Jr. The kid is amazing. We all had him rated fairly highly. I think he was pretty much our RB1 by everybody. There's a couple people that had Justice Haynes over him, and we've heard how great he's looked. Nick Saban doesn't typically praise freshmen, and he was out there praising Justice Haynes. I think there's a realistic shot that ends up being more Baxter and Blue than Jonathan Brooks. I said when the season kicked off, or early in the preseason, I wouldn't be surprised Jonathan Brooks transfers at some point. I just don't think he's as talented as those two. They're bringing in other top-end running backs in the 2024 class. Like, I think if you're picking one, I'd probably go Baxter or Blue. And if you're saying Blue's going for free, he would easily be a guy I'd take as like my last pick.
Alrighty, well, it is now your pick here. Matt, what are you kind of thinking here?
So I am going to double up on wide receiver. Dang it. I just saw the guy. So I was definitely going to go Barry and Brown, who I'll take. I was going to take Dalvin Smith out of Western Kentucky, who I honestly don't know a lot about, but I know you guys have him ranked at least fairly well based on our rankings. Oh, I don't really love any of these players. Dang it. What do I have, like 30 seconds left?
You got 45. You're good here. By the way, Ben, Marks would not have made it back to you. He was the running back I saw still on the board that had excellent value. So Justin's absolutely killing it this draft. Well done, Justin. Matt, you can't do this to me, man. You can't do this to me.
Was that a good pick?
That was a great pick. That was an excellent pick.
I wasn't sure. So I was torn between him or a running back. And I figured, you know what? He's again, I'm going solely based on your guys' rankings here at the website and trying to decide who I want to take. You guys had him ranked high enough that he's still pretty high in my queue, so I'm happy to get Pinckney here out of Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, that was a great pick, man. That is like, you legitimately sniped me there, because again, like I looked at it and I'm like, dang, that's pretty good value at wide receiver right now. Like, I don't have a. When was the last time I took a wide? Well, I just took Jaron Bradley. So like, but again, the wide receiver value really hasn't fallen in this draft as much as some of the other ones. So I'm kind of reeling just a little bit here with some of these guys. But I will figure it out here. See, Mox loves the Pinckney pick as well, Matt. So you did really, really good on that pick.
I finally got a thumbs up from Moxley, because I feel like every other word out of his mouth has been hating on my team. What would you rate my team right now, Moxley? Throw it in the chat, like a C plus. Have I made it up to a B minus yet with a Sam Pinckney?
You are asking for him to put F minus in the chat.
That's all right.
By the way, Point God puts in the chat. He says, has Sean Tyler's ADP fallen off a cliff? He needs to read some Minnesota beat writers. So Sean Tyler was going like super, super early in CFF drafts early on. He transfers from Western Michigan over to Minnesota. I was very early on that train saying, like, that is a bad idea, y'all, right there. One, Minnesota with their new offensive coordinator supposedly wants to pass more than they have in the past. They've also been pretty clear that Sean Tyler probably leads this running back room, but they have other options. They have Zach Evans, who was a true freshman last year. They have guys like Bryce Williams, and they bring in Darius Taylor this year, who's a 4-star freshman this year. They have other options. They're going to try to split up that role. There is going to be, like, if you draft Sean Tyler thinking you're going to get Mo Ibrahim numbers, you're just asking for trouble there, because he's not big enough to get that kind of workload in the Big Ten. So I like his value much better here in the 13th round. I understand this value a whole lot more. I'm still not drafting him, but I can get this just a little bit more. By the way, Mox gave your team a C with B- potential. Player hater of the year sounding off on Sean Tyler. Yes, sir. It. Yes, sir, Mox. I am the ultimate hater. That is what I'm known as in the C2C staff. Is I'm the ultimate hater. Let's see. It's coming back to me. I'm probably going to go ahead and grab the guy. Surprisingly, the guy that I wanted is kind of making his way back to me here. But also, that's probably because he's not been very good. But, you know, let's lock down the Iowa tight end room. Let's grab both Luke Lachey and Eric All. It's an interesting dynamic going on over there, because I think Lachey is easily the more talented guy. But apparently, Eric All and Cade McNamara are like best of friends. So we've seen that nepotism play out well for guys in the past, like Charlie Jones, who probably wasn't the most talented wide receiver on Purdue's offense last year, but it sure got him a lot of targets and had a lot of chemistry with Aiden O'Connell. So definitely worked out for them there. And now I'm going to take a running back here. I haven't taken one since, good Lord, 7th round. Let's go ahead and load up on Mr. Tylan Hines here, an explosive guy who doesn't need a ton of volume to get things going. And he's not going to get a ton of volume in the run and shoot system over there with the Hawaii offense, but he is explosive as hell. And quite frankly, anytime he touches the ball, he could rip one off for 60, 70 yards. So I am going to enjoy that in a best ball league. Whoa, Jared trying to take up my title in here. Oh, I guess Barnabas is also a player hater of the year as well. So, Matt, anything else kind of sticking out to you? Anything you, like, again, you said you're here to learn and everything like that. Like,
yeah.
Like, anything kind of sticking out to you, like, oh, was this pick a good value? Or, like, I won't ask you to name anybody who's still on the board, because obviously, like, you don't want to give away who you're looking at, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. So Colby Young just went. I thought that was a pretty interesting pick here in the 15th round. I feel like he was rated pretty highly by you guys in the rankings. So for him to fall to round 15 here, I don't know what wide receiver that is off the board, but that seemed to be a pretty good pick. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on him? And I see Tyler Van Dyke going as well in this round. So like that, you guys think that Miami offense has a chance to be good this year? I mean, I know there's been some kind of consternation about how good Shannon Dawson really is going to be for this offense, and if Mario Cristobal can really even get out of the way and allow Shannon Dawson to run this offense.
That offense is going to be so boom or bust this year. As far as I can tell, like, it really is, like, everything could come together. Shane Dawson really could be a much better OC than we all gave him credit for. He can kind of take that Houston system, move it on over to Miami. Mario Cristobal gets out of the way. Everything's fine and dandy. And Colby Young becomes this year's Nathaniel Dell, in which case, I believe Bennett just got an excellent pick there in the 15th round. Or everything could fall apart and Ben just burnt a 15th round pick. But in terms of the upside versus the downside being you burned a 15th round pick versus the upside being you potentially got this year's Nathaniel Dell, I don't think there's any argument that the upside was well worth the pick there. Malik Hornsby comes off here in the 15th round. I'm kind of surprised. I didn't even pick up that he was still on the board. I just kind of assumed he was off already. That is interesting how far that value has dropped. Quite frankly, I should have picked up on that a while ago, with me already having 3 to 4 QBs, because as my 4th or 5th QB, I'll take that upside. I will take that upside all day long. Matt, you are on the clock here, sir. What are you thinking, man?
So I'm double tapping running back. I feel like it's been a while since I've taken running backs. I'm going to take Marlon Gunn and Taj Brooks. Brooks, a guy that I liked as a I believe it was a redshirt freshman, had some fairly interesting games, kind of fell off last year, did not play as well as he did that first season, but I think he has a chance to bounce back this year in that offense.
Very, very nice. I like both of those guys. Again, Brooks, this is probably the highest I've seen him taken, but again, we're in that range of it's kind of okay to reach up for your guys a little bit more here. So I think that's a very fine pick right there. Casey Thompson, Justin just took. I love that pick there in the 16th round. Katron Allen, that is that is definitely one of the more interesting Zag picks because Nicholas Singleton, where did he go? It was early on. You have 5th round. Katron Allen, you can get 11, 10 rounds later for a guy that had probably, I don't want to say just as many explosive games as Nicholas Singleton last year, but he had plenty of productive games last year. I think that was a great pick there as well. And then Marlon Gunn, your pick there, Matt.
Yeah,
East Carolina. My biggest concern with Marlon Gunn is that East Carolina is just going to be so bad this year, and that he's going to get game scripted out a lot. But at the same time, he's shown he can receive out of the backfield pretty well. So he won't get completely game scripted out there. And if you're in a PPR league, that's going to be even better for you there. But, Mitch grabbed both Singleton and Allen. Wow, great job there, Mitch. I didn't realize it was the same person. Marlon Gunn there, though, in the 15th round. I love that pick, Matt. That was an excellent find at running back. Wow, we're just flying through this round. Good Lord. Let's see. Similar worry with RJ Harving. What do you mean similar? Chris Moxley says you're B- coming into fruition, Matt. So you're picking good according to Mox.
Let's go. We're nailing it at the back end of the draft. Not so good at the top, but we're nailing these late picks.
No, so Point God, you're asking about RJ Harvey. I love RJ Harvey. I think RJ Harvey is going to be great for Plumlee. Again, the big concern I have there is how much are they going to rely on a terrible back in DeMarcus Bowman, and how much does that cut into Harvey? We shall see. All right, let's see what we got here. I really need to take some shots at wide receiver here. A couple of guys still on the board here. Let's go ahead and take a piece of that Western Kentucky offense and pair him up with my top quarterback there in Austin Reed. Get that stack going with Michael Matheson. And then we shall see who makes it back to me here. Oh, Cody Schrader. That's a great pick by Ben there. And I'm going to see if one of my, yep, there he is. If there's a certain running back here, I'm going to take him because, quite frankly, he is super undervalued in these drafts right now. But we'll see if Ben knows who I'm talking about right now. It's funny doing these drafts because you start talking about somebody and then you can kind of see the draft slow down for just a little bit so people can see if they can figure out who you're talking about. Let's see. Cam Porter, good pick here in the 17th round, but I'm going to go my friend, Mr. John Lee Elridge there over there at Air Force. Don't expect him to get the Brad Roberts treatment in terms of the volume, but Air Force is still pretty consistently put out 1,000-yard backs. Again, I don't think he's going to get the 1,700 yards like Brad Roberts did last year, but still, I'll take a guy with 1,000-yard upside here in the 17th round all day long. Matt, what do you kind of think about what you've seen come off the board here recently?
I love that Gavin Sawchuk pick that just went. I was planning on taking him this round. I think he's got the chance to be the better Oklahoma running back this year, just with the foot injury to Javonte Barnes, that dead foot bone. He's, I think, a better receiver, and he showed some pretty interesting bursts and run. I know small sample size, just that bowl game, but I think he had a chance to probably be really good. So to get him here in the 17th round, I think is a great pick overall.
All right, things are continuing along. Cyrus Allen, that's an interesting pick out of there from Louisiana Tech. I know there's been a lot of back and forth on whether it's him or Smoke Harris that'll take over Trey Harris, because Trey Harris last year, y'all, was the let me look at my rankings here. He was the wide receiver. Where are you, Trey? Wide receiver 15 last year. So if they keep that going and everything, and Eagle there picked him in the 17th round, if he nails that pick, excellent pick there in the 17th round. Those are the kind of guys you want to take shots on here in the 17th round. Play with that uncertainty, get the value there. So good job there. Matt's coming back to you here. What positions are you looking at here? You got 3 quarterbacks. Are you thinking about taking another one here?
I might double tap quarterback here. There's 2 guys that I have in my queue that I feel like probably should have gone by now. So I'm intrigued to see what you guys think about them. I know Moxley's in the chat, so you guys can chastise me. Neither one of them wins, so I'm going to take both of them. EJ Warner out of Temple, who I know played really good last year, and this one might be a little bit of a reach, and I'm fully prepared to just be scolded and reprimanded for taking him. Chandler Morris, I mean, was the starter for TCU last year. Was that a good pick? I love it. Okay, I'm horrible through the first 7 rounds, but like 8 through 16, I'm nailing, or 18, I'm nailing these picks. Yeah, I mean, he was the starter last year, gets injured, loses his job to Max Duggan. Now, granted, they're losing Garrett Riley, but like at TCU, got some interesting players. Like, again, my QB5, I kind of like it.
No, dude, that was an excellent pick. I was literally just looking at him being like, he's still on the board. I haven't been able to get a Chandler Morris share all year this year, and he is somebody that I need to start being a bit more aggressive in targeting. Because, yeah, he looked awful to start last year, especially in that first Colorado game and everything. He looked awful. But he did beat out Max Duggan last year in camps. Maybe he's a camp star. There are guys like that just show out much better in practice. They show out much better in camp. And then once the moment the lights come on, they're like a deer in the headlights. By the way, Mitch, great pick with David Martin Robinson right there. Excellent pick. But yeah, Morris is a guy that here in the 18th round, I'm starting to kind of target just a little bit more. There's kind of a tier of quarterbacks here. Once I have my top 4 in that mid-range that I kind of round myself out with here, I got 2 in my queue right now that I'm thinking about grabbing at least one of them when it makes it back to me here in the 18th round. So, but I'm also thinking about wide receiver as well. Got a couple of guys in my queue, just some of my favorite guys to kind of take shots on. And I'll probably be hitting wide receiver heavy a little bit here because I only have 5 so far. So we'll see what kind of upside I get here. Luke, I don't know if you're listening, buddy, but wait, actually no, Luke, that might be a placeholder pick. I think Luke might be going after Jordan McLeod there for James Madison. I think isn't Jordan McLeod like in the? Yeah, he is. Let me just switch that out for you there. All right, there we go. So that must have been just a leftover from one of his old rankings there. Corey Rucker there in the 18th round, man. If he gets that waiver and he goes right back to that system that made him so popular, I think that's a very, very nice pick there in the 18th round. All right. Coming up on me here, I got 2 quarterbacks. I'll probably just let people know. Do I need to do that? Do I need to let people know who my other one is? Because like maybe I can get him at a value later. We'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything.
I'm not gonna say nothing. I ain't gonna say nothing because you guys are all little snitches out there, and you're absolutely gonna take anybody else. All right, okay, never mind. It was a mistake. It was not McLeod that he wanted. He wanted Tagovailoa instead. So we're gonna go ahead and switch that out real quick. So Tagovailoa, kind of an interesting safe pick there. I think it's kind of split on whether or not that passing game will get any better than it was last year. Last year is very much a disappointment for them. They bring in a couple of transfers this year. Tyrese Chambers. Caden Prather is somebody I'm kind of interested in over there. But overall, I'm kind of keeping myself away because I don't like their offensive coordinator hires. All right, I'm going to grab one of my guys here. 18th round. Give me Byram Brown, quarterback out of South Florida. I do believe he is going to win that job over there with the Bulls. And so he's running that same offensive system that made Hendon Hooker so great last year, except they're playing in the AAC. So hopefully they're able to get that up and running in year 1. I will absolutely take that as my 5th quarterback off the board here. Ben, you're saying say it, Jared. What do you want me to say? I'm confused. Do I have a catchphrase? Is there a catchphrase?
I think he wants you to tell him who that quarterback is that you want.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely not. He's going to remain at the top of my queue here, and I'm going to see if I can get him in the last third of the draft here. But for now, Ben's got Thomas Yasmin off the board. I'm probably going to take a shot on some wide receivers that I like here. Starting with, as soon as I find out who in the world Mr. Ben is going to pick here. And he sniped me. Well done, Ben. That's exactly who I was going to go with there. So I'm going to have to pivot here. And you know what? Let me see. Yeah, kind of running out of running backs that I love to take shots on. So let me grab one of my guys. Let me grab TJ Harden. running back out of UCLA. Was going to go wide receiver, but you forced it on me, Ben. I'm going to grab TJ Harden, running back out of UCLA, the much better value at running back for UCLA this year. Maybe it ends up just being a committee, but man, it's too much for me to pass up here. I thought he looked great at the end of last year. Very explosive back. I think he's going to absolutely going to outperform Carson Steele moving forward. So Matt, again, looking at the board here, any picks kind of stand out to you?
TJ Harden, interesting pick. I know Mike Valerie loves him at UCLA. We saw Carson Steele go a lot earlier than him. I think you probably got the value pick there with him, especially if he ends up being the starter. Trying to see who else I think is an interesting pick. I mean, Allie Jennings, do you guys think he's going to have a good year this year? Virginia Tech goes in the 17th round. I feel like he was the guy we were all pretty high on for CFF purposes last year, but that's probably because of the team that he was on.
Yeah, I'm always skeptical when guys move up from the G5 to the P5. Granted, Jennings is a guy who's played in the P5 before, unlike some of the other guys that moved up from G5 to P5. So he probably has a little bit of a benefit there. But it also helps him that there's really nobody else in that wide receiver room for Virginia Tech. So he's probably going to be the wide receiver one for them. I just don't think the value of a wide receiver one for Virginia Tech with Grant Wells at quarterback is really going to be anything all that to write home about. Barnabas, if you're listening, man, Malik Sherrod, great pick there. I've had my eye on him for a little bit here, so good job there, man.
Yeah, I was actually going to take him. I'm looking to add a running back, and he was at the top of my queue as the guy, so I'm going to have to pivot to somebody else now.
All right, let's see what we got going on. I'm trying to catch up on Twitter. People are sending me messages, making sure there's nobody that desperately needs my attention. Carp said, huge storm in central Georgia. Okay, yeah, we have to say we got hit with a huge storm as well. Bert Emanuel off the board. It is now to you, Matt. What are you looking at here, man?
So I don't know if Moxley's still in the chat, but I feel like this is going to bump my B- to a B+. I'm taking his guy, Colston Loveland. I need another tight end. I just have the one and Brady Hunt. I don't even really know how many tight ends I should take. I feel like I should go in with at least 3. So I wanted to grab one there. And then I'm going to go running back. I mentioned I feel like I'm a little bit weaker there. There's 2 guys that I am looking at, but I'm going to take this guy because he was ranked fairly high for some of you. When I say high, I mean high as compared to players left on the board, and that is Latrell Palmer, running back for James Madison. I honestly don't know much about him outside he's ranked fairly high for the running backs that were left. Thought about another running back who I think is interesting that's still on the board, but I'm going to wait and see if he falls back to me in the 21st round. If he does, I'll ask you a question about him.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people go after Palmer. I know a lot of people are big on Kalen Black over there as well. He was kind of injured last year, so we didn't really get to see a whole lot of him. But the buzz around there is that he is kind of the better back out of those 2. But even still, Latrell Palmer is definitely the veteran. So there's a good chance that he gets the first carry in a lot of those games. And if he performs well, he'll continue to get those carries. So I don't think it was a great pick, but I think you're shooting your shot on some of these systems that are proven to have good results in the past. So I don't blame you there. A couple other picks, kind of moving on here. I'm trying to catch up a little bit. Tanner McLaughlin, that is a guy that I haven't seen go off a ton in CFF drafts, but again, without Dorian Singer there, somebody else has to catch some passes, and Tanner McLaughlin is their kind of resident veteran tight end option. So I think he'll probably get a bump from what we saw last year. Coming back over to me here, trying to think where I want to go with this next pick. I think I'm going to hit 2 wide receivers back to back here. Yes, I think first I am going to target the guy that had the most amount of targets in all of FBS through a good portion of the season last year before he got hurt. Let's go with Cam Camper out of Indiana. And then the other guy will be me just taking my shot on what should be a high-powered offense going into this year. And quite frankly, because of all the uncertainty there, I think there is quite a bit of value in this next pick, so long as Ben doesn't snipe me here. So Ben, don't do it, buddy. Don't do it. I don't know. I got a backup just in case he does, but still.
Who's the backup?
I'm not going to tell you.
Why not? I mean, he's definitely not going to make it back to me. So, I mean.
Oh, definitely not. No. All right, Will Howard, quarterback out of Kansas State. That's a good pick right there in the 20th round. So good job on you there, Ben. What else have we got here? By the way, if y'all got any more questions in the chat, again, we're kind of in the last third of the draft here and everything like that. So we're going to continue talking about who is here on the board. But if y'all got questions, this is the perfect time because, again, things are kind of slowing down a little bit. People are taking a little bit more time with their picks, trying to find the values there. Keyshawn King, that's an interesting one because he is not a Virginia Tech, he's not a Virginia Tech like Fantrax says. He's actually at Western Michigan. And quite frankly, they didn't really have a lot of great options there already. So that's a fun little Maction late shot there. I'm going to take my shot in the USC wide receiver room. I'm going to go Brendan Rice, who had an excellent bowl game to finish the year. Seemed like he and Caleb had a pretty decent amount of chemistry to kind of finish the year right there. So I am going to take the shot there. Carp, great pick there, and a shot. Clayton, what do you kind of think, Matt? Anybody kind of sticking out to you? There's Jadon Blue coming off the board in the 21st round.
I love that pick, Jadon Blue. Like we talked about that Texas running back room earlier. If he really gets a lot of run here with Cedric Baxter, again, best balls, you don't have to decide when to start him. He's going to go in your lineup when he has those good games. That's a great one. I thought the Jimmy Horn pick in last round was an interesting one. I like the Malik Benson pick right there. He was at the top of my queue. I was planning on taking him as well, just to try and get a piece of that Alabama room. I don't know who it's going to be that leads it, but he's an interesting name to say the least. So.
Yeah, the Sean Dollars pick is also pretty interesting there. Mitch is mentioning that in the chat. Man, Nevada's going to be an awful team this year, so I'm a little hesitant to get any guy in that, anybody in that Wolfpack offense. But, man, sometimes you just go into systems and you just pick the most talented player there because they're going to have to run it through him if they're going to get anywhere. So it's a fun little pick there in Sean Dollars late here. Anybody else kind of sticking out to me? Blue, also a reclassified guy, will be just 18 this year. Is that true?
I don't think he reclassified. He sat out his senior season. He did not reclassify, though. He just did not play his senior season. There was some reports negative about why he didn't. I reached out to his high school coach, and he said that there was nothing bad. He just ended up not playing. So I don't know that he reclassified, though.
Do you think that's why Blue didn't get that much run in his freshman year? Because like he sat out for such a long time, they had to kind of put him back into the weight room and everything like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's kind of unfair to say that that's you should take that in consideration when Travion Henderson did the same thing and they came out there and ran for 1,200 yards and had whatever it was receiving at Ohio State. Yeah. But it affects everybody differently, right? I mean, Travion Henderson was still working out, doing all that stuff. Jadon Blue sat out for personal reasons in his senior season. I do think that does matter. We've seen it just affect a lot of players. You have to continue to get that development, work on your body, everything. So I do think that's probably a big reason why. And of course, they had Bijan Robinson, and dude's an absolute stud. It's kind of hard to sit out an entire year and then you go into a room with a guy like that. It's hard to kind of carve out some work.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the biggest red flag for a lot of us last year was when when the bowl game came around and it still didn't seem like he was getting any run. Yeah. And so I think that's why a lot of people kind of backed off on him. But, like you said, in the spring game, the spring camps and everything, it sounds like he was kind of popping off quite a bit over there. So, Matt, you're doing so well. Don't fall for the Branson Robinson stuff, man.
So why is he falling so much? I mean, he's got to get some run, right?
He's the running back 3 for Georgia this year, man. At least to start the year. He's going to need some injury for him to go down, for him to rise up. Kendall Milton will be the running back 1 for Georgia this year. Whether people like to hear that or not, that is going to be the case. Dejon Edwards will be the guy behind him. Branson will be RB3 to start. And yes, Branson Robinson will be more valuable as an RB3 at Georgia compared to RB3s at other schools because Georgia does like to rotate their backs so much. So you're probably going to get some touchdown luck here and there with Branson, but at the same time, especially in blowout games, because in blowout games they're going to take Kendall, they're going to take Dejon out, and then they're going to give Branson some run there. So you might get some value right there, but don't be drafting Branson thinking that he's going to take over as the lead back at some point this year.
So I took him more because I believe that's my 8th running back now on my team.
Fair
I
point.
figure even if he ends up getting to my lineup 3 times in round 22, I think that's probably fair. I mean, you mentioned blowouts; they have a fairly easy schedule until they get into the SEC play. So there's a chance that he might have a couple big games, and that was really the reason because I believe in the talent. I think he's a phenomenal running back. He rated very highly for us in that freshman class. So I figured, why not take a shot on a guy? If he makes my lineup 3 times, I think that's a win, getting him in the 22nd round.
Fair point. By the way, PSA to everybody, Justin drafted the wrong T. Johnson there in the 21st round. He did not mean to draft Theo Johnson. He meant to draft Tez Johnson, the wide receiver out of Oregon. So Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State, is back on the board for anybody who might have missed that. Eagle grabbing one of my favorite potential sleeper picks if Fantrax can give him the right designation, because Kelly Joyner, former running back of South Florida, is moving into the slot, and it sounds like he is kind of the clear number 1 wide receiver there, at least receiving option for them right now, because really they don't have anybody else out there right now. So like that pick quite a bit over there. Speaking of South Florida, I think I am going to go ahead. Is it no? Nah. Man, y'all did a good job finding some value here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take my 6th quarterback here. Just continue to kind of load up there. Give me Emory Jones out of Cincinnati. This is a dude that ran for 600 yards against the SEC. He is now over at Cincinnati, going to be playing in the Big 12. No, he is not a good quarterback, but quite frankly, he will be playing against some defenses that are not nearly as strong as the ones he was putting up against at Florida. I think as my 6th quarterback, like kind of how you broke it down, Matt, he's going to have some very boom games playing against teams like Texas Tech. He's going to have some boom games playing against teams like Oklahoma, things like that. So I think that's or BYU especially. I'll take that as my 6th quarterback there. That's the value that was the guy I was considering taking, maybe instead of Byron Brown there in the 18th round, but I will take him 4 rounds later here. All right, it's back to me. Which way do I want to go here? It's been a while since I've taken a tight end, so let me go ahead and take one of my favorite high upside tight ends. Give me Dallin Holker over there at Colorado State. We saw what Jay Norvell did with Cole Turner just a couple of years ago. Dallin Holker, not happy with his usage at BYU, picked out by Jay Norvell to come in to help out this offense, give them some other receiving options over there. After none of the tight end options that were there last year really worked out, I will take that as my 3rd tight end absolutely here. And I like it. Eagle took Naquan Wright. I knew as soon as I let the words South Florida slip my tongue, he was going off the board. So, yeah, good pick, Eagle there. Tommy taking Carson Beck there. That makes Tom feel dirty, according to him in the chat, because Tom is a Tennessee fan. So, but Tom, real recognizes real, man. That's what can I say? Carson Beck. I'm not going to stake my career on the fact that he will be a CFF asset this year, but in best ball, and what number quarterback is he here for you, Tom? This is your 5th quarterback off the board. I think you're going to have multiple weeks where Carson Beck breaks into your CFF lineup. So I think very good pick there in the a good pick in the 23rd round. Any picks kind of standing out to you here, Matt?
No, I mean, I like the pick of Holker. He was a guy who got a lot of love in spring camps last year out of BYU. I thought he might do something. I think it was after like game 2, he decided to forego the rest of the season so he could enter the transfer portal. I'm really intrigued to see what he does at Colorado State. It seems like a team we as a company were fairly in on last year, and they kind of unfortunately failed to live up to expectations, and everybody's back in this year. So it could be a really intriguing pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of BYU tight ends, Isaac Rex comes off in the 22nd round. Honestly, Isaac Rex, what did he finish as last year? He finished decently highly, if I remember correctly. Nope, I'm a liar. He finished as tight end 36, but he had some pretty boom weeks, if I remember correctly. Yeah, to finish the season, he finished with a 14-point game and a 17-point game, and he broke 10 points 2 other times throughout the season. So as a best ball pick, great pick in the 23rd round. It's back to you here, Matt. You're going Julian Fleming there out of Ohio State. Honestly, a pretty good pick. considering that he'll, like you said, he'll be out there 90% of the time for Ohio State. He may not get the love that Emeka and Marvin Harrison Jr. get, but he'll have his boom games. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Man?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I took him here is that we know how they're going to use him. They're going to use him in that field stretching role. We'll see, we'll see what happens at the quarterback position. I expect it to be Kyle McCord, who I think he's got a great enough arm to get it down the field. Devin Brown, same thing. I know that they'll stretch the field. They don't have a tough schedule outside of Notre Dame in week 4. They play Penn State about halfway through the season, Michigan at the end of the season. So there's a chance for him to put up some pretty boom weeks. And like I said, at this point, I think he's my wide receiver 9 or 10 at this point. Like same argument I made for Branson Robinson earlier. Like at this point, I'm just trying to look for those guys who can get me like those boom weeks, whether it's 20-something plus points, 30-something plus points, because he gets like 3 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever. Just gets in my lineup for a week to win me a week. I'm good with it. Yeah,
that's exactly the attitude you have to have, especially in a best ball format here. Again, if this was redraft, you're definitely looking for a bit more of those safer guys. But, for now and everything like that, like we're hitting the range of like nobody is a guarantee in this range. A lot of it is projection, a lot of it is speculation. And I have guys that I like, but like at the same time, you just got to go for those guys where you don't want to draft a wide, like if he is like Dante Cephas just came off, and we're going to say he came off as like the wide receiver 70 in this draft, right?
Yeah.
You are not drafting Dante Cephas thinking that he's going to finish as the wide receiver 70. You're drafting him thinking that he could have a Jahan Dodson-like role, which would put him in the top 5 of CFF wide receivers. That's just the way you got to think here later on in these drafts. You're not going for safety. You're going for the risk. Speaking of risk, I got a couple of wide receivers here coming up that I think provide me some pretty good value here. So I'm going to probably take both of them. I've drafted these guys quite a bit this year, but quite frankly, as long as people keep giving them to me as a value later on in these drafts, I will take them. So let's go ahead and get the first one here as soon as Carp makes his pick.
Well, I'm hoping it's not the 2 guys that I want.
Nah, I'm going to take Malachi Jones, wide receiver there out of Tulsa. Tulsa loses everything out of that wide receiver room except for Malachi Jones. Malachi Jones entered the transfer portal at one point, but it was announced that he did return to them, played in the spring. And with Kevin Wilson over there, again, I know that like he was kind of offensive coordinator in name only at points for Ohio State, but he's probably going to try to replicate a lot of what made that program successful if he wants to continue his career as a head coach, and probably implement that offensive style as well, which means the guy in the slot is going to get a lot of love. And guess who plays in the slot? Mr. Malachi Jones. I think as the veteran in that room, he is an excellent pick here in what is probably going to be a very pass-heavy system for Tulsa, given the fact that their defense is awful and they're going to have to pass in order to keep up in their games. I love the upside of Malachi Jones.
Hey, I actually think that he's going to be he was more involved in the passing game than people think. I know Ryan Day was the offensive coordinator, but they were actually both brought in at the same time by Urban Meyer. And when Ryan Day ended up getting the offensive coordinator job, they used him as the pass game coordinator. It was up to him and Brian Hartline to decide what passing plays they were going to put into the playbook to play every single week. Like Ryan Day wasn't the one who decided all that. He got the final say, but they were the ones who put all that stuff together. So I think that passing game is going to be very interesting there at Tulsa this year.
By the way, Ben, love the shot on the Tennessee wide receiver room there with Ramel Keaton. Great pick there. I mentioned earlier, I kind of like the direction that the Kentucky passing game is going, and I'm going to go ahead and target the guy in the slot. I know you took Barry and Brown earlier, Matt. If you love targeting talent, Barry and Brown's your guy. If you love systems, Tavian Robinson is your guy. Tavian Robinson playing in that slot role that Liam Cohen has loved to target over the past couple of years between Cooper Kupp, between Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, you might argue that both of those guys were the most talented guys for that system. But here in the 25th round, Liam Cohen has specifically called out Tavian Robinson by name as somebody that he was excited to work with. So I do think that Tavian Robinson will be heavily utilized in this passing game. Maybe he doesn't get the Wan'Dale numbers. Obviously, he's probably not going to get the Cooper Kupp numbers because he doesn't have the talent and the position. But even still, I will take that shot as my, 9th wide receiver for my team? Absolutely.
Yeah, I like it. I saw some really interesting picks go off the board there. Ja'Cory Brooks in round 24. He was a guy that I was targeting, and Jaden Greathouse in round 25. Two guys I had toward the top of my queue. So I hate that they both went.
Yeah. I would say great. I was just about to mention that Greathouse just came off the board, so I figured you were going to be sad about that pick right there.
Yeah, those two, Brooks and Greathouse, were my next two guys I was planning on taking if they made it back to me. So,
yeah, I forgot. Let me look at your team, Matt. You took Jalen Johnson, the former Georgia receiver there for East Carolina and everything like that.
Yeah,
very nice, very nice. Is there a reason why you took him over? I think it's just Cy Hatfield. I think the J's silent and everything. Is there a reason why, or are you just taking a shot?
Just taking a shot. I'm
no, fair enough.
100% honest with you.
No, that's all good. Again, that's pretty much anybody. And if anybody tells you a reason other than they're just taking a shot, they're more than likely reading too much into one piece of information they found somewhere. Because I think both of those guys have an equal shot of being the guy for East Carolina this year. And shoot, it could be a thing like last year where, God, what's his name he came in from Toledo. Winstead, where Winstead got the targets, he got the production, but man, it was CJ Johnson that was hogging all those touchdowns. Could be a very similar situation this year where both of them are valuable in their own ways, but at the same time, it could end up hurting both of them. Let's see. Coming back to you here, Matt. Again, we're kind of near the end of the draft. You're taking shots and everything like that. These are kind of your sleeper picks at this point you're looking at. Oh, there's your AD Mitchell pick. Great pick right there.
Yeah, so I'm going to take AD Mitchell. I think you can make the same argument with Julian Fleming. Going to be on the field a bunch for Texas. I mentioned earlier 126 attempts deep for Texas, and I think that he could do that. And then I'm going to take one more tight end. I feel like I should have at least 3 to leave this draft. He's fairly highly ranked at our site. At least I say fairly highly ranked. I don't even know where he is anymore. I had him up here.
Good pick.
But Fairchild, I mean, with was it Kansas, right?
Yeah, Kansas.
He's, ranked in the top 30 for us at the website. I figured might as well just grab that one more tight end. I feel like I'll be good with just 3, with just a couple more picks left. So
he is my tight end 14. I believe he finished as the tight end 14 last year. I don't really see any reason to expect that he wouldn't finish in a similar range. Kansas pretty much brings everything that they had last year. There's clearly some connections between him and Jalen Daniels. So I think it's an excellent pick. It's your 3rd tight end here. I personally might even like that better than the Colson Loveland pick. I do like Colson Loveland's. I do like his talent, but again, Michigan just has so many different options they could go with at tight end. Versus Fairchild, I do think is kind of a step above anybody else that Kansas has over there in their tight end room. Point God, I see your question. Don't worry, buddy. We'll get to that here in a second.
I solely took Loveland just to try and boost my draft grade up from Chris Moxley, and I never got a word back if he boosted it up to a B+, which is all I was aiming for there.
Let me see. I think it's Moxley said, "Can you hit a B+?" He complimented your Warner pick, and then he's been silent ever since. So I think Box might have left and gone to bed.
No, he's disappointed. There, you don't have to sugarcoat it. He's disappointed.
Nah, probably. All right, just kind of making our way back here. Only got 5 rounds left here, y'all. Appreciate you guys tuning in for tonight again. A little bit less of a crowd here tonight than we did last week, but that's kind of to be expected. The first draft's always going to have everybody coming in to celebrate and everything, but you guys are the real ones. You're still here after. You're still here to kind of hang out on the second week. So appreciate all of you guys here. If you haven't hit that like button already, please make sure you go ahead and do that. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button as well. Again, we do have that goal of hitting to 1,000 subscribers by the start of the season. Slowly but surely making our way over there. But you guys help a lot just by hitting that little button right there. Couple of picks coming off the board here. Trey Knox is somebody that I'm kind of surprised still hasn't made their way up draft boards in terms of him landing there at South Carolina following his tight end coach. I'm kind of surprised that I'm kind of surprised he still hasn't made his way up there. Sam Brown is a fun wide receiver pick here late because again everybody's going after Matthew Golden, but Sam Brown honestly outproduced him in a lot of games last year. So if you want a fun little Zag pick, go for Sam Brown here in the 26th round versus Matthew Golden, who went where? Where did Matthew Golden go?
I feel like he went super early.
I don't see him. Am I just blind? Probably I'm blind. It's my pick. I need to make a pick here. I'm going to take Austin Jones, running back out of USC. Again, I was just talking about like Sam Brown. When people are zigging, you can zag. Austin Jones is another zag guy for me. Again, I like the talent of Marshawn Lloyd, but Austin Jones, while I don't think his talent is spectacular, he is the veteran in that room. We did see when Travis Dye went down last year, they were still willing to hand the ball off to Austin Jones 20 times a game, just like they were able to with Travis Dye. It'll probably be a bit of a split backfield there now with Austin Jones and with Marshawn Lloyd, but I think there's a 50-50 shot on either one of those guys being the RB1. I'll take the shot with Austin Jones here in the 26th versus Marshawn Lloyd, who went, ninth round. So 17 rounds later, I'll take the guy who I think has an equal shot of making it there. I'm probably going to take another tight end here. I'm probably just going to go ahead and grab Shane Calhoun, a guy who's been getting a lot of buzz with East Carolina. We're talking about East Carolina wide receiver options earlier. Yeah. It sounds like Calhoun might be the best receiving option of the bunch when it comes to the Pirates. So as my fourth tight end here, I will take the shot on a guy that could possibly be the best receiving option for his team. RJ asks, why isn't Brevin Spanford getting more love? He had 61 targets and 42 receptions last year. That's a good question, man. I think he is a pretty good value here in the later round tight ends if you're willing to go there. It's just there's so few passing touchdowns to be had at Minnesota. I think that's kind of the thing that holds him back more than anything else. Like, yes, he could have another 42 receptions this year, but he could still only finish with 2 to 3 touchdowns. So I think that's kind of the thing that holds people back the most on it. Yep, exactly. He only had 2 touchdowns last year. So, Matt, you were about to say something. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I was going to ask what your thoughts were on RJ taking Justice Haynes there, the 25th round. I feel like that's the same argument you could make for him with Branson Robinson, who we talked about earlier, being the third guy in that backfield, but also being a true freshman. I don't know that we expect to see a lot out of him this year.
I think we will see a bit of Justice Haynes again. Saban doesn't throw praise around lightly, especially for freshmen. So I think you're probably going to see him earn his role. The problem is that backfield still has Jace McClellan, who I think is going to be the main guy this year. You got Roydell Williams, who's just going to be Roydell Williams. Nothing fantastic, but he's there to clog things up. Jam Miller is a guy that a lot of people kind of forgot about the moment that Justice Haynes came onto the field. It's probably going to be when blowouts happen for Bama, is going to be a tag team between Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. I think Haynes has probably put himself in that same tier as Jam Miller as a freshman, but it's going to make it a little bit tougher than even I would say Branson Robinson for you to really know, even in a blowout, if you're going to get a great performance out of Justice Haynes. But again, Justice Haynes here in the 25th round, why not? If you really believe in the talent that much, think he could take over this year, if he doesn't work out, you burnt the 25th round pick. All right, Matt, you were taking a shot on some Wisconsin and Hawaii wide receivers here. What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I mean, for Bell, he got all the love last year in spring out of Wisconsin. We know they're bringing over, why did his name just leave my head? Offensive coordinator, Phil Longo. I don't know why it took me a second to think of him. Phil Longo, Tanner Mordecai. While I don't think that they're going to fundamentally change what Wisconsin has been completely, I still think they're going to pass the ball a ton. That wide receiver room is wide open. I know, I don't remember what the other gentleman's name is. I think he's ranked higher by most of you guys, went a couple rounds earlier. Just taking a stab on a Wisconsin wide receiver, see if any of those guys can kind of break out in that offense.
Yeah, no.
And the same thing for Hawaii. I mean, Moxley's been pumping up Hawaii. It just kind of seeped into my brain. I figured, why not take a shot on a Hawaii wide receiver at this point? Timmy Chang's going to turn it around, according to Mox.
So, Matt.
Yes.
CJ Williams is a guy that we have in our Devy guide.
Yes.
He was still on the board. Why not? Why take the shot on Skylar Bell over CJ Williams?
So 100%, I plan on taking CJ Williams as well with one of my last two picks. If he doesn't go, I just figured Bell has been ranked higher by you guys. It seems like he gets a lot more pub. So I felt if I wanted to take both of them, which I think I will, assuming he doesn't go off the board, that you got to take Bell first. So I just took him, but I honestly fully 100% plan on taking CJ Williams. I still think Williams is a very talented wide receiver. I was very high on him in our freshman guide last year. I think I actually wrote his profile. I thought he was going to not break out, but not be a year 1-0 at USC. That unfortunately did happen, which doesn't, look great. We've seen it's a very small group of people that end up being fantasy relevant after that fact. If you're a year 1-0, but he blew up at Wisconsin camp this year. A lot of the reports are that he was one of the best ones. He went from being on like the second team or the third team to the second team fairly quickly. I think he's got a shot to be really good in that offense this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Miles Marshall, they're taken by Barnabas there in the middle of the 28th round. I think that's a very fun Maction pick there later on. We saw what Mac Hippenhammer did for the Redhawks last year. I think that you could find a lot of value right there. I'm back on the clock. I think I'm going to go the other side of the James Madison running back debate. I'm going to go ahead and take Kalen Black there, take my shot on a offense that probably needs one of its running backs to step up greatly, considering that their options at quarterback are really not that great. So let's ride with Mr. Kalen Black here. There goes Brevin Spanford there in the 29th round. There you go, RJ. Your boy is off the board here. Now I just got to figure out what I'm going to do with my last pick, because everybody did a pretty good job of grabbing all of the value that was kind of left on the board. Nobody really kind of standing out to me here too much. So, Matt, you have your final two picks coming up here.
Yeah.
Are you your guy still on the board? Are you gonna probably go ahead and get that kind of handcuff there?
I'm actually not. There's a wide receiver on the board that I just realized hasn't been taken that I do think I'm going to take. So I got to ask you, this is 100% on me for not checking the scoring. Does kick returns, punt returns, any of that stuff matter? Or is it just strictly offensive points?
Not the yardage. I'll have to check whether or not to see the, no, actually the, special teams touchdowns do not count because we don't have the DSTs in this league.
Okay. So I'm going to take Jeff Sims, who I talked about earlier. I think, as a last-round pick to give me my sixth quarterback, just to be on the safe side, as someone who played in a C2C league last year and won a championship with no waivers, having six quarterbacks and all of them being injured in the championship week, I don't think you can have, you can never be too safe with that. And the last one, I'm just going to take shot on upside. Got a lot of love in spring. I think there's a shot that he starts in arguably one of the most explosive offenses in the country. Taking Zachariah Branch is likely going to be the slot wide receiver for USC. Last round pick. See what happens.
I don't blame you. Again, I think it's going to be tough for him because, again, Taj Washington and Mario Williams are still there. They're both going to be chilling out there in the slot. So, as talented as I think Branch is, I think their seniority is probably going to keep him off the field, at least to start the year for sure. Definitely after this year, though, Branch is going to be absolutely incredible. What else do we got going on here? Moose Muhammad, that's a fun little Zag pick with Evan Stewart going off so early. RJ taking both of the Iowa State running backs there with Jairo Brock and Cartavius Norton. That's a fun little handcuff to grab there at the very end. Man, I don't really know what I want to do with this last pick. Again, there's nobody really here that's like screaming like, I have to have this person. So I think I'm probably going to go with a post-hype sleeper, just to kind of get this name back out there for everybody. So all of you guys listening out there. But we'll see if he even makes it back to me. Maybe we got some pretty savvy drafters within the six people ahead of me here. Point God says, you full FBS guys are soldiers. Projecting Maction seems really, really tough. Point God, you have no idea. You have no idea how difficult it is to find information out of some of those MAC schools. It is an absolute, not a slog, because a slog makes it sound like I don't have fun looking for it. GD, Charlie Jones ain't there anymore, buddy. So I think you might have, I think he autoed there. So we'll get him something later. Wow, you guys are flying through your picks now. through here. A couple more picks until my guy here. I'll go ahead and start letting this slip. We know for a fact that the Mike Gundy well, no, never mind. Wow, Eagle. Wow.
Was it Jaden Bray?
It was Jaden Bray.
Who you wanted?
Yeah, it was. Wow, that just really threw me off my groove there, man. Yeah, well, Jaden Gray, great pick there, man. Yeah, let's just go with the top receiver I have on my queue. Let's go TJ Sheffield. Probably will be the number one wide receiver for Purdue. I have no idea how valuable that'll be, but I know he's a veteran. I know if Graham Harrell runs his system that they're going to pass a whole lot and that he'll probably get a good share of the targets over there. So not an exciting pick for my last one, but, good job there. All right, Baylor Bear says, y'all might hate this pick, but I have insider info plus Homer. Ooh, Ben, I'm interested to see what you got going on here with the Bears. Ryan says, sweet, a whole draft and no Bainbridge showing me to just hang up the gloves. Feels like a small win. Okay.
Dominic Richards, interesting.
Interesting, because he was
Felix is
not good.
Running back.
He was not good last year. And I tried to defend him so much last year, but he was really not good. So the moment he transferred out and went to Baylor, I'm like, nope, clean him out. I'm done with Dominic Richardson. I am still going to go with Richard Reese, but it is interesting to say that you are willing to take a shot on him here in the 30th round, Ben, and you follow Baylor much more than I do. So I'm interested moving forward. All right, Matt. These guys did a pretty good job of finding a lot of value on the board and everything. Any quarterbacks kind of stand out to you that are still on the board? You were surprised you didn't see anything go off here.
Let me see if I can pull up my queue if it'll let me. I don't think I had any. Connor Wigman is one. I kept bouncing back and forth on whether or not I wanted to take him. And Carter Bradley, South Alabama. Maybe I was just because I was all in on the South Alabama offense. I have like 3 or 4 guys on that team. I thought both those guys probably should have gone, but that's really it. I mean, I'm looking at my queue right now. So, I mean, we talked in the Twitter group chat. I wanted to set mine up early. I set mine up with literally 360 players because obviously that's how many go off the board. I only have 10 guys left. So I felt like obviously a lot of people did a really good job based on, I'm not saying that they all went to your guys' rankings, but I did this solely based on your guys' rankings on the website. So I thought it was a lot of really great grabs. Those are really the only 2 quarterbacks I had left.
Yeah, I got a couple quarterbacks here that I think were worth taking shots on later here. Cooper Legas out of Utah State. I'm hoping that Blake Anderson offense kind of kicks back up again this year. A big reason why I want to target guys like Terrell Vaughn, not Tyler Vaughn. Tyler Vaughn was, the USC wide receiver a couple years ago? Yeah. But Garrett Green out of West Virginia, dual threat guy. Defense is going to be horrendous for the Mountaineers, so he's probably going to have to carry the offense on their backs. Clay Millen, good bounce back candidate right there for Colorado State, would be pretty interesting. And then Keaton Slovis out of BYU. I really think that BYU's defense is going to be horrendous this year. You're taking a step up in competition going to the Big 12. They're going to be forced to pass. It's not a system that typically makes the quarterback throw 35 plus times a game. But I think that just the situation they're in, and you have Keaton Slovis, who is more known for his passing ability than definitely his rushing ability, I think I could see him being kind of an interesting pick at quarterback. Let's see. Running backs. Anybody kind of stand out to you there, Matt?
The only one I had left in my queue was Anthony Grant, which I don't know if it's. I saw Gabe Irvin win earlier, so maybe I'm missing something. I swear something's happened with one of those two, whether it was Gabe Irvin or Anthony Grant. But I know Anthony Grant looked really good in the spring game, so he was the only one left in my queue, though.
Yeah, I have Anthony Grant here as well. I've been kind of avoiding it because it's been very up and down whether or not like there's something going on there, like discipline-wise or not. So I figured I'd just avoid. He's going for free in these drafts right now. If I'm in a league where I can pick him up off the waiver wire in week 1 or week 2, I'm willing to take that risk right there. At running back, nothing else really here that. Okay, so Barnabas says Anthony Grant was held out of practice for some off-field stuff, but then came back. Harvey, Tommy, I was just about to bring up Corey Kiner. He is in my queue right here. Again, another bit of a post-hype sleeper right there. We were really big on him for Cincinnati last year. Maybe with a new coaching system coming in, maybe he can kind of use that chaos as a ladder in order to move up that depth chart just a little bit. Plus, he's a little bit older now. But not really anybody else at running back that really surprised me that didn't come off here. Wide receivers, Matt, anybody stand out to you here?
Yeah, I actually had a bunch of wide receivers sitting here. Caden Prather, I had Tanner, I don't know how to say his last name, out of Eastern Michigan, Roman Wilson out of Michigan, Joshua Cobbs, Houston, was it Mekhi Shaw, San Diego? I had Money Parks from Utah, and then obviously CJ Williams. We're all still sitting in my queue. I was kind of debating going back and forth between them and Zachariah Branch and Bell as my last 2 wide receiver picks.
Yeah, I think those are all pretty good picks. Colin Lacey, I know a lot of people have been talking about him as like a potential like counter programming, like a zag for people. Jordan Hudson did come off the board. I would have stacked him by now. You were answering Tommy Harvey's question. My bad. What was I saying? Yeah, Colin Lacey. I'm kind of surprised nobody took the shot on him because I know a lot of people are kind of high on him as a counter programming to voice in there. Brendan Presley out of Oklahoma State. Again, we saw Jaden Bray come off there at the very end, but I think I was kind of surprised nobody took the shot on him considering the veteran leadership he has in that room. Who else here? I saw some Minnesota wide receivers come off the board, but Chris Hopman-Bell's still sitting here. So I would think that like if you're going to take a shot on Minnesota wide receivers, I might go after them. And then probably, Caden Prather was a big one. And then JoJo Earl out of TCU. Because again, there's been a lot of great reports coming out of him over there at TCU.
Yeah.
So, and then tight end, a couple of guys I think were kind of interesting here. But Matt, I'll let you put up some of the guys that you were looking at.
Yeah, I actually had no tight ends left in my queue. Brevin Spanford was the last one, but I kind of talked myself into only taking 3 coming into the draft, which I did. So I actually, like I said, Brevin Spanford was the last one I had in my queue. Maybe I'd have taken him if he went, but I think he went in that second to last round there. So.
Yeah, he did go to the second last round. George Takas, tight end out of Boston College. I was kind of surprised nobody took the shot on him. Theo Johnson out of Penn State, and then Trayton Welsh out of Wyoming. All 3 of those guys come from systems that have used the tight end pretty heavily over the years. So I'm surprised that nobody was kind of just taking the shots, especially as like your tight end 3 or 4, taking shots on some of these productive systems we've seen in the past, especially Boston College, Penn State, and Wyoming. And shoot, Donovan Green, Texas A&M. That's another like true freshman last year. It sounds like he's in for a big role this year. So kind of 4 surprising tight ends there. Harvey asked in the chat, Tommy Harvey asking like any of the running backs at SMU stand out to you. If I took a shot, it'd probably be Jalen Knighton. It sounds like that he's probably kind of the main guy right now, but they have a lot of decent options over there. So I think it's more than likely going to be committee. I wouldn't really target any of those guys. I don't trust LJ Johnson at all. What about you, Matt? And like a lot of talented guys over there, but like anybody that you would put your money on?
No, I mean, like you said, if you're really taking a shot on a guy, would probably be Jalen Knighton as well as like my last pick or second to last pick. I mean, LJ Johnson, we had questions about him coming out as a freshman and then just never really able to do anything at Texas A&M, transfers over to SMU. I don't have much faith that he's going to be able to rebound, unfortunately. So it would just be Knighton because we've seen flashes, right? At Miami, we saw flashes of him being a really good running back.
All right. I was asked if a TCU running back came off the board, and I'm pretty... Yep, Trey Sanders.
Yeah, Trey Sanders did, yeah.
I would say Trey Sanders came off in the 19th round, their point guard. So, Matt, looking at your team as a whole...
Yeah.
What, again, we were fighting with Moxley's grade the whole time, but what grade would you give yourself? Did you come in and accomplish what you wanted to here?
Somewhat. I think it's a solid B. Maybe if you want to stretch it into a B+, I think it's good. Maybe I shouldn't have been so staunch on going double QB at the top because it definitely hurt me in taking some of the players I wanted that went second, third round. I thought maybe more people would go quarterback in that second and third round, let some value fall. They did not. But overall, I like a lot of the picks that I was able to make later in the draft. I felt like I got some fairly good values there. I think I've got some really good guys with upside, including, Hunt at tight end. Talked about Julian Fleming, A.D. Mitchell, Branson Robinson. There are a couple guys I think could win me weeks. They're not going to be, solidified in my lineup every week, but they could win me weeks with their boom week. So I think it's a solid B.
I think it's a solid B. It's very fair for your draft and everything. Again, some picks I love, some picks I definitely would have not have made, but that's part of the game. Like, again, I have my favorite guys. You could look at my roster right now, Matt, and you're looking at some of the guys I took, and you're just like, I probably would never take them in my life. Because again, like, even guys I don't really like that much. Like, again, like TJ Sheffield. I know I'm probably one of the only people that has consistently probably drafted TJ Sheffield at the end of my drafts, and even I don't love it that much. Versus some of the other guys as well, like Shane Calhoun. I've seen him go undrafted several times as well. In terms of myself, one, I accomplished something I always try to accomplish in these drafts, and I made sure my bye weeks didn't kill me. That is a bad habit that I have. So, but in terms of what I was able to accomplish, I took quarterback first round. Like, I don't normally do that. So it did kind of throw me off a little bit when it came to finding some wide receiver value, because again, I usually have 3 wide receivers by the time I'm outside the top 10 rounds, and this time I only had 2, I believe, or at least I reached up to get Lockhart in the 8th round to make sure that I had 3, but I usually get Lockhart a little bit later than that. So it kind of threw me off my game there a little bit. It's not my favorite draft I've had this year, so I'm going to probably put myself in a solid B as well. And I did kind of cap myself a little bit in the tight end room by taking 2 guys from the same room as well. So in reality, I only have 3 teams.
Yeah, I wish I would have paid more attention to the bye weeks, as I'm now looking at my team and realizing I've got 11 guys on bye week 6. So 6 is going to be a rough week for me, including 4 of my 6 quarterbacks. So I know we'll be starting that week, assuming no injuries. And I've got a lot of others. I think was it 11 or 10 in week 6, and then like 7 in week 9. So a decent amount of my teams are going to be missing in week 6 and 9 this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at mine. I got several guys. Again, week 6 is going to be rough for me as well. I think it's going to be rough for everybody. So I think it's kind of hard to avoid that bye week. But the good news is that everybody's going to suck that week unless you.
Let's hope.
That's the ultimate power move right there. Is you go into a best ball draft and you just take out all the guys that have a week 6 bye week. That might be a strategy moving forward. Like, figure out like which bye weeks are the most common, and then just draft around that. I might play around with that next week. That might be kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be counting on Jeff Sims and EJ Warner. So here's hoping for the best that week.
Oh no, that's that could get ugly. Yeah, Ben saying he has so many guys with bye week 8 and everything like that. That might be an interesting strategy. I might throw that in the CFF chat to see what they think over there. But Matt, that pretty much brings us to the end of our stream. We ended at a pretty good time here tonight, right about 2 hours. So appreciate all of you guys who were drafting with us, all of you that were just hanging out with us. It is a fun, amazing time to do these every single week. It is fun to answer your guys' question. This is probably the most personal I can really get with a lot of you guys in terms of a live reaction. So really, really appreciate the interaction that you guys give us here. Matt, I hope you had a really great time. Hope you learned.
I did.
Okay, Matt, let me ask you. You came on here to learn something.
Yes.
Give me one thing that you learned while you were here.
Wide receivers and running backs went a lot more quicker than I expected them to. Like I said, I approached this kind of like from a dynasty mindset where quarterback is king, and that wasn't necessarily the case here after like the first 4 went. I was kind of surprised by how heavy the wide receivers and running backs went early on. And definitely something I would adjust doing in my draft if I do another one.
All right, I appreciate that, man. Again, I really enjoy bringing on people onto these streams that don't do CFF all the time. Again, I love my CFF guys. Like, I love when I have Froton on here. I love when I have Mike Bainbridge on here and everything. But like, the best interactions I get on here are when it is people who don't typically do this and they ask a lot of great questions like you did tonight, Matt. So really, really appreciate you. That being said, y'all, it's time to go to bed. Got a whole week of work ahead of us. We got a lot of hard work to do to get that CFF draft or CFF guide out to you guys by the end of this week. So be on the lookout for that. Until then, really appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed week. I'll see you guys next Sunday.